And whereas supporting Lyons LGBTQ+ community also aligns with the town's strategic objective to co-create a more inclusive and equitable community that promotes unity and honors diversity. And whereas the LGBTQ+ community has made great strides, however, work remains in order to achieve full equality, inclusion, and acceptance. Whereas we as a town and as individuals desire to practice respect, kindness, and understanding and teach these traits to future generations. The town of Lyons affirms its commitment to the promotion and protection of the human rights of LGBTQ+ residents in the community and urges all residents to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance. Now, therefore, I, Holly Rogan, Mayor of the Town of Lyons, do hereby declare the month of June 2022 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and the seal of the Town of Lyons, the 16th day of May, 2022. Okay. Sergeant Christ.
All right. So I thought this would be a good meeting. I have a few extra items that I don't normally bring in, but with everybody being new, I figured this would be a good meeting just to give you a couple quick bullet points on what's going on.
Hey, Sergeant Chris, would you mind using a microphone for the folks in the?
Yeah.
Try that one.
Try
this
this
one
one.
doesn't have a button. Try that.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You can bring them one.
I always know my voice.
we can see.
Like audience. So as I was saying, I just thought it'd be good at this meeting just to kind of get you guys all up to speed on some things that we're doing, things that I'm working on, things like that. So I'll just start off with a bullet point list of things and then field any questions. So currently working with our new code enforcement, Zach Burgess, right? Our new code enforcement officer, just getting him up to speed on some legal stuff through town. We have an official meeting with town administrator Simon and Judge Brown this Thursday for his enforcement duties and what we can and can't do, stuff like that. So he's going to be a big help. He's already been pointing out some things and we've already been working with him throughout town on just some minor issues. So definitely looking forward to that relationship. Still working with the fire department on building inspection issues over at 432 Main and some fire lane parking, no parking signs on the 600 block of 2nd Avenue. Those are just some ongoing things that we've been working on for a while. So those are just still in progress. I'm proud and happy to say that we haven't had any graffiti over the past month or so. But in place of that, we did have a couple of vehicle thefts and trespasses over the last few days. So again, my public service announcement, it's a crime of opportunity most of the time. Things are left out, things are left unlocked, keys are left in things. It's a crime of opportunity. And I say this a lot at my board meetings to get the word out that lock it up, take care of your stuff. It's a great town. We trust everybody, but thieves don't take a break and they're out there all the time. So still working with CDOT and our flock camera systems. Trying to right now pinpoint an area. CDOT is just dragging their feet and I'm not willing to wait around. So we're looking for a town-owned pole at our strategic locations to temporarily install them. So I have talked with a couple of the public works folks and we're trying to identify that sooner than later. A very, very good example of that flock camera system happened in Boulder just last week. The felony menacing carjacking at gunpoint that Bloomfield had was picked up moments later on their flock cameras. They have 30 cameras in their jurisdiction. So as soon as they got the plate, they plugged in their flock and they tracked this car all over Boulder. And that's how we were able to apprehend this guy. So it was a big deal. And to see that flock camera system work like it should was exceptional. So it just really makes me more excited that the town has approved a couple cameras for Lyons to mark that. Like I said, it's just another tool in our toolbox to help with this kind of stuff. So super excited for that. I am also working on a new, and I'm not the most tech savvy computer guy, but I'm working on a new program that the sheriff's office has to help better track crime and trends in Lyons. So I can bring it down just to our jurisdiction, plug in the parameters I want and start tracking it and be able to have that information at my fingertips a little bit more readily available in case needed. Generally, that information comes out at the end of the year on an annual report. And we have a statistician in the sheriff's office that helps him with those numbers. And he takes it for the full year. So I'm hoping to break that down by quarter. That way it will help us kind of maybe identify hotspots, things like that, or things are trending. The town of Superior is currently using it, and I had a demo on that today, so I think it's gonna be a really good system. So we're gonna try to get me up to speed on that, and hopefully that will come soon. That is kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot more, but I can stand here for another hour and tell you, but I'll say that for the next week.
Anyone have any questions for Sergeant Christ? I can't see Mayor Pro Tem, so I don't know if she has her hand up. Doesn't look like it. Okay.
Can I have one question?
Yeah.
I understood that there was some vandalism at the Summit housing development. Can you comment on that, or did I hear it wrong?
Yeah.
People, they vandalize into their equipment.
Oh, the tractors and stuff. Yes. Sorry. So still under investigation, but it doesn't look good for us. The equipment was parked in an area that was very secluded. So trying to get any kind of ring camera footage, anything that saw it, our campuses haven't turned up anything at this point. We did listen DNA, we did take evidence like we always do. The biggest thing about property crimes like that is all of our guys, we treat it, it doesn't matter if there's suspects or not. We collect the evidence the same on all that kind of stuff. The biggest thing that can happen is those people that are responsible for the car thefts, those cars will turn up eventually. We process those, pull DNA and match them. And then that starts the big deal. So that's generally how we try to put these guys in and get them busted. So it's, I wish we could solve it like CSI in an hour, but that's what I know about that.
Trustee Dottie.
Yes, can you just remind us how we should proceed when a local resident contacts us with a potential crime or concern? Are we just supposed to send them down to the sheriff's office? Is there a phone number, an email
Yeah.
address?
So obviously an emergency, dial 911. Please dial 911 if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency and it can wait, someone wants to report something, call immediately the non-emergency line. And that's the 303-441-4444. The biggest problem we have in the small town Lyons is just that somebody wants to talk to just me or just Gary or just Steve or just Tony because they've already been working the case. So they wait. Gary's off for the next 2 weeks, so it really hinders us in investigating any kind of thing that comes up. And then we're out of the loop unless we happen to get on Lyons happenings, which I don't do. But some of my guys do. A lot of things come off of that clue us in. But if you see something, say something, please. I would rather send my deputies out 10 times a day on whatever and have it be nothing and have that one time where we go out and it's the real deal. So.
Could you please repeat that number?
Absolutely. 303.
Yep.
441-4444.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Sergeant Chris. Your team did an excellent job with the 8-year-olds on Friday.
Oh, yes, I heard we missed it by one vote.
One by one.
Oh, yeah.
But that's all they could talk about. So thank you.
Awesome. I rallied my crew and the canine lady, Tori Williams, she's awesome with the canine. She came up last minute, so I was really happy. They had a lot of good pictures, so I'm glad it was a success.
Thanks. Okay. We have no ordinances or public hearings tonight. So I will ask Clerk Vasquez to read the consent agenda into the record.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I had mine. Okay, consent agenda. Item 1 is resolution 2022-51, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a construction contract with the Jump Doctors for Bone Dirt Bike Jump Park improvements. Item 2 is resolution 2022-52, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, ratifying a decision made by the Board of Trustees to extend the deadline for Spirit Hounds to dedicate Lake McIntosh shares to July 18th, 2022. Item 3 is resolution 2022-53, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a professional services agreement with A&R Fencing for installation of fencing at the recycling center. Item 4 is resolution 2022-54, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, ratifying the professional services agreement with Oak Road Tube and SUP LLC. Item 5 is Resolution 2022-55, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, extending the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. Item 6 is Resolution 2022-56, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, establishing a remote meeting policy. Item 7 is Resolution 2022-57, resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending remote meetings, rules of decorum and etiquette. Item 8 are the May accounts payable, and item 9 is the May 2nd, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
Thank you, Clerk Vasquez. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any item anybody wishes to remove from the consent agenda? All right, I will call for the vote on the consent agenda.
The motion passes unanimously, and Trustee Farrell gave the thumbs up.
So if I made this quickly as far as an update to everyone, so Mayor Pro Tem or anyone else who will join virtually, so the new policy we just enacted requires you to verbally say what your vote is. And so.
Okay.
I think you're muted, Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have boards and commissions, and I have a couple of appointments. Because he cannot get enough of us, I am appointing David Hamrick to the Historic Preservation Committee with great gratitude, and Claudia Paterno to the Lyons Arts and Humanities Commission. Yay. And now we have an update from LAHC. Do we have Lauren Click?
Yes. Hi, good evening. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, good. So you can hear me okay. Great.
Yep.
Let me just share this briefly. Oop. So first and foremost, thank you all so much for joining us as and representing our town and volunteering your time. Thank you so much for that. My name is Lauren Click. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the chair of the Lyons Arts and Humanities Commission. I also do want to give some thank yous to the previous board for supporting all of these projects really through funding. A huge shout out to the staff for the town of Lyons, to Kim and Brianna, to Cosgrove and all the maintenance staff, to Victoria, and to all of my colleagues on the LAHC. It is a ton of work to do all of this, and we really, really deeply appreciate all of the emotional and physical support from the staff of the town of Lyons. This presentation is about 10 minutes long, but feel free to interrupt me at any time. I can sort of see you down there, but it's probably best if you just want to raise your hand or holler, or if you want to give me a little thumbs up, that would be great. I do like to start presentations, especially to a new board, to talk a little bit about arts research and the importance of the arts for communities. I'm not going to read this. Hopefully you all can see this pretty easily. I will point out this is research from Americans for the Arts, from National Endowment for the Arts, from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. I will read the first point because it's a really good summary. That public art has been found to provide a positive impact on communities by supporting economic growth and sustainability, attachment and cultural identity, artists as contributors, social cohesion, cultural understanding, public health, belonging. The list goes on. And we have data to show all of these. These are facts that have research behind them. It's not just to beautify Lyons, but to really enhance our community in a number of different ways. The investment on return in the arts is very, very high. In 2015, I mean, this is still continues to be the case that the arts contributed billions of dollars to the American economic the American economy, excuse me, more than agriculture and transportation and warehousing. You have to think when you go to an arts event, you don't just go to the arts event, you go to a restaurant, you hire a babysitter, you stay at a hotel, right? It builds on itself and it feeds into our communities. The arts improve well-being and they unify communities, and it goes on and on. And if any of you are interested in looking at this research with me, I'm happy to invite you to a coffee or a cocktail to talk through these things. But now I'm going to get into all of the exciting things that we have going on here in the town of Lyons. The Lyons Creates Creative District. This is an ongoing project to make Lyons into a creative district. We started last year. The application will go at the end of this year, and you will be hearing a lot about it. The creative district does accomplish a major goal of our 2010 comprehensive plan. And a lot of it goes to financially supporting our local artists, enriching our community, and promoting the arts more broadly. We get marketing support from the state when we are a part, knock on wood, when we become a creative district. I do want to point out on our list is to transform an underutilized space, that is the historic depot building, into a focal point for gathering and collaboration and innovation. We are still very much interested in the depot if that is something that the board is interested in talking about again. We're fiscally sponsored by the Boulder County Arts Alliance, so we are an independent fiscally sponsored entity. Check out our lionscreates.org website, and we will keep you all very informed about this project as it goes on. Our Hearts of Lyons sculpture program. I am absolutely sure that you've seen the work around town. We have about 21 temporary sculptures installed throughout Lyons, including downtown and throughout all of our parks. That is about one sculpture per 100 people. I think it's the most per capita in America. Anybody that's watching can try me and see if that's true or not, but I think it's true. And we have 6 new artworks being installed this summer, with 5 being removed. We rotate them every 2 years, so you get to see cool and fresh new artwork. This very exciting project, the Town Hall Mural by Android Jones, our local artist. The piece, as you see here, oh, pardon me, I hope you can see it in full. This is about 60% done with design, as he told us. You can see where the windows are cut out. This will be painted onto the stucco of the newer town hall building. Facing west is the courtyard and Laverne Johnson Park. Installation is planned in June, and we are still actively fundraising for this. We do have some support from the town and from local funders, but we're also continuing to do fundraising for this incredible project. And I will note that the fox was voted on by local school children. We gave them a bunch of animal options, and they asked for us to include the fox in the painting. Next, our Creative Outlet series. We are, as you, I'm sure, have seen around town, there's one right outside the library near where you are, but they're also in Laverne Johnson Park and Bone Park. These beautify our public spaces by painting our electrical boxes and making them interesting instead of kind of sore thumb out there. We have a new application open that closes on June 6th. Any artists that you know, please send this to them, or if you're watching artists, please apply. It's a summer installation date, and we are very happy to receive ongoing grant funding support from the Lyons Community Foundation for this project. Thank you all if you're listening. Our town hall and library tandem art shows, and this is an incredible showcase for local artists, really supporting local artists. The art sales primarily goes to benefit them, and then we generally receive 10% of the sales price to go into our fundraising to continue doing this work. And as you're sitting in town hall right now, I hope you're enjoying the exhibition that we have on view there. Our next opening will be on July 6th, and we are going to be hosting a show of all of the LAHC member artwork. So you're going to see some artwork from my previous colleagues and current colleagues. Jocelyn, I'm looking at you. You better bring a piece. The Ute Trail, Sculpture Trail of Treaties. You probably heard about this piece if you were watching the board meetings last year as well. This is by Ute artist Orlin Joe, and it celebrates our history of the Ute and other indigenous peoples in Lyons. We have partnered with the Southern Ute tribe to work on interpretive language for this. And we're anticipating a fall celebration and installation. And we're very, very happy to have support from CMEX to help with the installation of the base of the sculpture. We are still actively fundraising for this piece as well. And then all of our other art projects, I mean, they go on, and we all have kind of our own little pet projects as well. We have a performance coming. This is a touring theater truck that's coming from a Boulder-based company, Butterfly Effect Theater Company. They'll be performing June 26th. We're working on Crystal White Way, Pathway Trail, some artwork to acknowledge and celebrate Crystal. Art at Riverbend, July 17th. It's one of our fundraisers, but also just a big fair and art show. And it's a lot of fun. And another fundraiser, the Farm to Table Dinner on September 14th. Also a lot of fun, more culinary arts. Please, if you have any questions about any of this, if you want to talk offline about any of these, you can obviously also get on our newsletter, follow us on Facebook, but please feel free to reach out to me with any questions about any of these projects or any other art that you see around town. It is such a pleasure to be able to work with all of you. And thank you so much again for dedicating your time to the town of Lyons.
Thank you, Lauren. You get better and better at that every time you do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't see your face, but I hope that it's smiling. Does anybody have any questions? Trustee Dati.
I always have questions. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. I was really pleased to hear that 10% of sales from the art shows go back to the LEHC. I didn't realize that when I had purchased a painting from Ann Hall that was on sale at the library. So that makes me feel really good. That was a win-win. I have a question about the Creative Outlets project. And I'm just curious as to how many more power utility boxes are left to be painted in Lyons.
That's a great question. Of course, our goal is to paint all of them. But I think I'd have to ask Kim, if Kim is on, or maybe Victoria or Cosgrove. Yeah, I'm actually not sure. We one a year seems to be going really, really well. Cosgrove, do you have an idea?
Well, I see Director Kaplan over here might have an idea of how many more years of Creative Outlets.
Right, it depends, right? We're trying to put everything underground, so that means adding more of the boxes instead of the ones on poles. So maybe you have a few hundred now, but you might have 1,000 as we keep underground.
That evil cackle.
Sounds like that's a long-term project, Lauren.
Happy to work on it. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? No? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, as always. Thank you for your hard work.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks. Night.
Okay, moving on to general business. We have a presentation by Boulder County on transportation tax. I think I saw Stacy Proctor on there.
Stacy Proctor and
Kathleen.
Great. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for us to be here with you this evening. I'm Kathleen Brackey. I'm the Deputy Director for Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting and lead our transportation planning team. And with me this evening is Stacy Proctor, a project manager from our transportation planning team, who has led Boulder County's transportation master plan and is now one of our lead staff on our transportation sales tax exploration. And also with us this evening is Tim Swope. And Tim is a transportation planner with Boulder County's Public Works Department. And we work closely together on our various transportation projects jointly with Transportation Planning and Public Works. So again, really appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. We have a brief video that we'd like to share, if that would be okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I'll hand it off to Stacy. Then it's a really great way to kind of get a context of the big picture of transportation throughout Boulder County and our TMP, and help set the context for our conversation this evening.
Okay, yeah, let's see. I'm gonna see if I can do this. Okay. Share sound. Are you seeing a video on the screen?
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna press play. Let me get it back to the beginning.
Boulder County is a great place to live, work, and play, with beautiful scenery, countless opportunities for recreation, a strong sense of community, and robust local economies. There's so much to love about Boulder County. Our multimodal transportation network connects our communities and places we want to go. Whether it's taking transit to work, riding a bike on the US 36 Bikeway, walking our kids to school, or driving to an appointment, Boulder County's multimodal transportation network helps to get us there.
Going forward, Boulder County's transportation needs are changing, and the transportation system must adapt to meet the community's changing needs. Not everyone has access to all transportation options, and too often our current methods of transportation are too expensive and contribute to climate change and poor air quality. To achieve our community's vision of a safe, sustainable, affordable, and inclusive transportation network, we need to work together to prioritize our transportation investments and plan for a future that serves all of us.
To address the challenges we face now and in the future, Boulder County's Transportation Master Plan provides a blueprint for us to work off of. And as we prepare for the future of getting around our county, we want to continue hearing from you on what you'd like to see the county prioritize.
The TMP includes projects to improve Boulder County roadways, transit, regional trails, and bicycle and pedestrian facilities.
We're working with local and state partners on planning improvements for our regional corridors, such as Colorado 119, US 287, and Colorado 7. Our focus is on the community and giving users multimodal mobility choices, regardless of where they are coming from and going to in Boulder County and beyond.
Vision Zero is our ambitious safety program. We set a goal to eliminate serious injury and fatal traffic crashes in unincorporated Boulder County by 2035. We are dedicated to achieving our goal and providing the public with a transportation system where anyone can travel about the county safely and comfortably, regardless of mode. We are going to achieve our goal by collaborating with stakeholders, engaging with the public, and using a proactive, data-driven approach to eliminate crashes and prioritize safer road design and educational strategies.
Boulder County's Mobility for All and youth transportation programs address the unique needs of our vulnerable and underserved populations. We know that transportation is essential to accessing education, healthcare, recreation, and economic opportunities in Boulder County. By enhancing mobility and transportation options for people of all ages, abilities, and incomes, we foster vibrant, healthy, and equitable communities.
We are enhancing our mountain area connections by creating programs and services that are designed for the unique needs of the county's mountain communities. We are working to continue our strong history of combining local, state, and federal funding to bring the community's transportation vision to life. Boulder County prioritizes investments in multimodal corridors to give people options to use all modes of transportation and support our clean air and climate goals. With your help, all of these programs and projects can come together to create a safe, equitable, affordable, sustainable, and resilient transportation system in Boulder County.
Great, thank you, Stacy. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Again, it's, I think, a helpful background for all of the work that we do in transportation for Boulder County and for the communities, and to help people have options and choices to travel in all different ways. We also have a brief presentation for you this evening. I think there's a link to it in your agenda packet. We'd like to run through this, and again, it's meant to be conversational, so please feel free to stop me and ask questions as we go along. And okay, so as we think about transportation in Boulder County, we think about all the different options and choices that we're trying to provide, and each of those require resources to implement. And so we've been working on a process for the last several months, including outreach with town staff. Really want to appreciate the opportunity we had to talk with you a month or so ago. and look at a variety of ways that we could continue funding for Boulder County's Transportation Master Plan implementation, again, for all of those different programs and services. So we've been working on a lot of the technical analysis, looking at different financial options and looking at different packages of projects over the last couple of months. And now we'd like to share that with you and with others in the community to get your feedback on this information, on these options, and then we can share that information back with the Boulder County Commissioners so that they could make a decision about whether or not to move forward with a potential ballot item for this November 2022 ballot to extend funding or not, or depending on different levels of funding as part of that. So this is the process and the timeline that we've been on, and we just want to share a little bit additional information with you about this. So next slide, please, Stacy. So our current countywide transportation sales tax really is the bread and butter of how we fund the multimodal system throughout Boulder County. It's 1/10 of a cent or a tenth of a penny is the current level of sales tax, and that's been in place now for since almost, well, a little over 20 years, and has been implemented in a way through the involvement with the consortium of cities. So while this is administered by Boulder County, we check in each year with the consortium of cities on our projects, on programs and services and investments to make sure that we're staying in tune with what people's expectations are and that we can deliver the package of projects that meet the voter expectations. The current sales tax that we have in place in Boulder County expires in mid-2024. So we are actively working on exploring different options for extending that sales tax into the future. And I think, let's see, I'm just going to go in the quickly here. Again, I want to make sure we have time for discussion and questions, but again, it includes a whole host of different types of projects, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And this just gives you an example of some of the projects and investments that have been made over the past 20 years, again, throughout the county, but it's a combination of safety improvements, such roadway projects, regional trails, transit services and programs improvements, and then also safety improvements such as pedestrian underpasses. Next slide, please. And we keep good track of the funding. That slide that just went by was just really important to make sure that we're being good stewards of the public's dollars, and we're tracking those and again reporting that out on an annual basis with the consortium of cities. Next slide, please. So again, why is the funding needed? We want to make sure that we are able to continue the investment in the countywide transportation system to provide people options and choice and improve safety. I mentioned the current sunset is happening in mid-2024, but also another reason why this particular timing is so important is that because of recent investments by the state of Colorado in transportation through Senate Bill 260, and also at the federal level through the recent federal infrastructure bill, there's a lot of additional funding available for transportation, but all of it requires us to have local matching funds. And so we want to make sure that we're able to look out into the future and have that sustainable, reliable source of funding so that we can leverage the county dollars and be able to go after some of the new state and federal money as well. And then I also think it's important to touch on what happens if this doesn't go forward, or if it goes forward and is not approved by the voters. As I said, this is our foundational funding for transportation in Boulder County. So we would basically need to pare back all of the services we're currently providing in the areas of transit, our Mobility for All programs and youth, and also in our regional trails program. And then our roadway piece would basically just be maintaining the existing system that's out there today. So it's a very serious issue for us and certainly an opportunity, but we want to be able to share all sides of the story with you about this funding. Let's go to the next slide, please, Stacy. So again, in terms of what will the funding accomplish, it's around providing those options and choices for people, all ages and stages of life, all throughout the county, all different types of choices, and safety and multimodal mobility. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. And this is just a map to help show kind of visually where some of these projects are identified. And I think that the next slide kind of shows more the complete network. There we go. That shows again the roadway connections, bicycle, pedestrian, regional trails, and transit improvement projects that are envisioned throughout the county based on the transportation plan. So we have a lot of opportunity to go to work on, but we definitely need resources to bring it to life. Next slide, please. And again, this is just kind of tracking of all the projects, the prioritization process that we've gone through to date. But again, we're sharing this information with all of the communities because we want your input to help guide our recommendations that would come forward to the commissioners over the next couple of months. Next slide, please. And when we talk about projects and programs and services, it's really around, again, this combination of things that make up each project. So it includes construction and operations and maintenance. And then those roll up into packages of projects that again include transit and social equity, mobility programs, and roads and regional trails. And then we've been rolling those up into more of these scenarios that I'll share with you in a moment. Next slide, please. So there's a lot in transportation and a lot of different types of projects and services. So we've been trying to identify these buckets or baskets of ways to categorize the projects. And so some of them include the regional corridors that were identified through the Northwest Area Mobility Study. They're outlined here, like Colorado 119 and South Boulder Road. There's a whole network of those across the county, but also projects that you saw on the map that would connect from Lyons to Longmont and Lyons to Boulder. We're starting new transit service here this summer, connecting from Lyons to Boulder. So a lot of different types of projects and different scale of projects. And then some areas around general transportation and looking at ways to expand fare-free transit on particular routes. And then the possibility of identifying funds that could be shared back with local communities to be used for your local priorities. And then that could be done through some type of formula basis or other type of approach that again could be done through the consortium of cities. And then the other area that we've been analyzing has been the possibility of funding for subdivisions in unincorporated Boulder County. So this just gives you a flavor for the types of projects we were looking at in the different scenarios we're creating. Next slide, please. We've also looked at, how do they stack up in terms of the types of projects, making sure that we're investing in a whole host of projects. We can go to the next slide, Stacy. And this is the same information just on a percentage basis. So if we were able to increase the sales tax, for example, for transportation to a higher level than the current 0.1%, perhaps we could increase the percent of those funds that were able to go to regional trails or to transit or mobility programs. Next slide, please. And this gives you an example of kind of the range of options that we've been exploring and seeking feedback on. The low bookend is the current level of funding, the 1/10 of a penny. And then the high end is, what if we went all the way up to a penny? We recognize that's not realistic or practical, but we often would get the question from people, what would it take to implement the entire transportation plan? And so we wanted to look at that high end as well. But we've looked at kind of midpoints around 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. And again, with each of those, there could be a different set of investments that are made, and certainly different ways to look at trade-offs and options within each of those scenarios. So none of this is set in stone. It's just meant to be examples of what could be possible. Next slide, please. So that's kind of our big picture view of transportation for Boulder County. What we work from, really our touchstone is our transportation plan. And now we're looking for ways to sustain the investment in the system, and appreciate any thoughts or suggestions you have for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Would you mind terribly unsharing your screen so that, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Okay, who has questions? Trustee Dati, do you have a question?
I do have a question. Thank you so much for all this legwork. My husband very much appreciates the bus service between Lyons and Boulder to get to work, and being able to ride his bike back safely is a huge priority for me since we have 3 kids. I really love scenario number 3. So I just want to clarify then, if the ballot were to propose 0.75% sales tax, you would be able to fund all 80 projects at $360 million. Is that right?
That's correct. Based on our current estimates, that would be, I would say, almost all of the projects that are in the TMP. And I should also clarify, when we talk about some of the larger scale projects, what the portion that we've identified in the Boulder County sales tax would cover the local matching dollars. We would still need to find and seek out grants for, regional through regional, state, or federal funding to complete the entire project. But this would be our portion of local matching dollars to apply for those grants.
So I'm just curious, because I like to dream big. If we went with 1% sales tax on the high bookend, are we only adding the rail portion? Is that what's different? Is that what's added here? The added value?
Yeah, so the item that's identified there, again, it was a concept that came forward as we were exploring this, that would it be possible to identify some dollars in the county sales tax that could be used as an incentive for RTD to move forward with fulfilling their responsibility on Northwest Rail? And so the thought being that would be a way to, just help it move forward, show the local commitment to the project. So we looked at that in both the, I think several of the scenarios. Financially, it fits better within the larger ones. So like the 0.75 or and above, given the dollar amount for that. And I don't know, Stacy or Tim, if you want to add anything to that.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thanks.
Yep,
I have one last. Sorry, Mr. Soap, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'm just going to reinforce the idea that historically Boulder County sales tax has been going on for 20 years. And really the main purpose of it is obviously working with our project partners to put together some really good capital improvements, but also having county funding to match CDOTs or RTDs or state funds that become available. And that's really the big function that our sales tax has played for some of these larger countywide efforts, regional efforts.
Thank you. And just to clarify the process, so it sounds to me like you will be making a recommendation to the county commissioners. Is that right? For the ballot? And is this ballot going to take place in November?
That's correct. So as staff, we would be making a recommendation to the Boulder County commissioners over the next month or so to be able to say what could be done for what level of funding, and then it's their decision on whether or not to put anything on the ballot. And if so, they would decide what the specifics are in terms of the funding level and the makeup of the types of projects. And then the goal would be to have that on the November 2022 election.
So I'm just curious then, are you looking for a recommendation or referral from us?
No, tonight we just wanted this
information. Okay, thank you so much for all this great information.
Yep.
Trustee Edding, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a real kind of high level question. How do you guys go about entertaining or thinking about what future technologies are going to do to the way we change our transportation? And I guess what I'm referring to is like the advent of e-bikes, and golf carts, etc. Because it's unclear to me exactly where an e-bike becomes a motorcycle and how that affects regional trails. Do you do more regional trails? Because since there's a lot more e-bikes, that we can get around a lot easier, we can go a lot farther. How does that, what's your foresight in all of that?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll start then. Certainly, Stacy and Tim could add on. That's one of the I would say really exciting and challenging parts of transportation planning is looking at, what are the needs of the system today, but then how do we anticipate what those needs are into the future? And just like the examples you described, what is changing and how do we prepare for that? And how do we make sure that we're creating a transportation system that's adaptable over time and can incorporate more and more different types of transportation, including electric vehicles of all shapes and sizes. Those are coming very quickly. And we do know that more and more people are using e-bikes for commuting and for connecting between communities and different types of trips. And particularly as people get older, they're choosing e-bikes because they can continue to go a longer distance, or it makes it easier to bring home groceries and things like that. So I'll share an example and ask Stacy to talk more about it. We're working on the Colorado 119 corridor between Boulder and Longmont. And as part of that project is the Commuter Bikeway. So Stacy, that's your project that you're leading. You could describe how that's leading into the future.
Yeah, so the idea behind the 119 bikeway is that it would be in the median between the northbound and southbound lanes of the 119, the diagonal highway between Boulder and Longmont. And it's about 9 miles. So, 9 miles on a regular bike might be pretty difficult for some people, but we anticipate that a lot more people will be able to make that commute on an e-bike. And then especially, I personally am not interested in riding my bike on the shoulder of 119 with traffic driving at 65 miles per hour or more. And there's a lot of other people who are in that boat. So what we're hoping is that we can, have a facility that's separated from traffic that will accommodate e-bikes. And looking really at, in our transportation master plan, we have a goal to connect all of the communities to have a separated bike facility between all of the communities within Boulder County, so that that's a viable transportation option. And it'll take a while to get there. 119 is kind of our first one so far. So.
Thank you.
Administrator Simonson.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate it. So just to clarify, you're going to the different communities presenting your proposal, and then you'll be making a recommendation to the commissioners. You'll be asking us at that point to maybe support your recommendation.
Yeah, so we're still just out gathering feedback to help shape the recommendation to the commissioners, and there'll be, yes, additional opportunities for meetings with the public as well as with the local jurisdictions. Like I said, we haven't been seeking a formal endorsement or anything like that at this point, but that could be something that would come at a future step in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our Mayor Pro Tem is hybrid tonight, so I want to make sure that she has an opportunity if she has any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Brogan. I just would, I still feel the need to put in a plug. Obviously, anything that could connect Lyons to Longmont and Lyons to Boulder, just on recreational standpoint, not even from a commuter standpoint, the number of cyclists that come into Lyons during the summer and then even during the winter time, and these large Peloton groups, I'm often concerned about their safety and on the highways, and inevitably every year we see tragedy. So I would implore that those two routes definitely be considered. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the feedback on that. We agree with you that is both of those connections are so important for mobility for all different types of trips and especially for safety. So we want to be doing everything we can to create separated facilities so cyclists can ride safely along those corridors.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple of comments. I want to echo Administrator Simonson's thanks for your presentation, for coming here to be with us tonight. And I want to reiterate what Mayor Pro Tem said. It's a matter of equity as well as safety. There are, in Lyons, we lack essential services. We lack a big grocery store. We lack a doctor. We lack a pharmacy. We lack a laundromat. And so it's essential that people are able to travel safely to those services. And when it comes to safety, Highway 36 goes through our town. There are pedestrian crossings with flashing lights. Cars don't always stop. It's extremely dangerous to cross Highway 36 in Lyons, Broadway and Main. And so any projects, in working with CDOT that could enhance safety and on Highway 7 going into Laverne Johnson Park would be terrific. Any last thoughts from trustees? Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate all your hard work.
Great, thank you so much and appreciate the input and suggestions. I was just taking some notes down on that. So thank you. We really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, next item is a discussion leaf request regarding use of municipal property. Please.
While Lori, looks like Lori's going to be on her phone, Lori Barton with Leaf. We had a request from Leaf's Board of Directors to have a quick discussion with the Board of Trustees about another option that they would like to consider, which is potentially the use of the brown building next to us. So Lori, are you joining in person or by phone?
I am joining by this. Can you see me?
Okay. Yes, would you like us?
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Okay, and in the board packet was a memo to the Board of Trustees as well as a conceptual plan. So Lori, we can either share those on the screen or we can look at you.
Let's share those on the screen.
Oh, okay. Why don't you go ahead and start talking through your memo first while we try to do that.
Okay, sure. You would like me to do that? Let me pull it up.
No. We thought you could verbally go through your memo while we pull it up.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you said, did you all want to look at me or look at the information I sent? And I said, let's not look at me. Let's look at what I sent you.
Then do you want the memo up or the conceptual plan?
Because
let's do the memo. Let's do the memo first.
Hi, Lori.
Hello.
We did it so that they can see.
Yeah, I could without.
Oh, if you can, it's just we have to push it back after the.
Can they see that?
I can see it here and
Oh,
actually
okay.
on her screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, so kind of handy right here.
It
She's
really
okay,
is.
though. It's all right. That's Dolores's head.
Because yeah, that's, I'm working too much.
Yeah.
Everybody can see the memo?
Yes.
Yes.
That's Trustee.
Trustee Farrell, can you see the memo?
Can the audience see the memo?
No, we cannot.
There's
Okay, well, thank you.
there's a
We'll
box.
work on another option. Lori, we may need you to talk through the memo and we'll try
Okay.
to put it in conceptual.
Okay, let me pull it up real quick and let's do that. So hello, new Board of Trustees.
Hello.
There you go.
We're already looking forward to such a long and fruitful relationship with all of you. So thanks for letting us be here this evening. I think that most of you have heard rumors, but not even rumors because you probably heard it from me, that it's come to our attention that potentially that brown shed building might become available for use by Leaf. And, we're just here to let you know that that's something that we're very open to, actually quite excited about, and are eager to work through, issues, questions with all of you to see if it's something that could become a reality that makes sense for everyone.
Lori, I'm hooked up to 2 different screens and I cannot get it to show.
Okay, are you all there in real life, able to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't need to see it because I wrote it, and I don't, maybe Jocelyn can pull it up on her own computer.
Yes.
Okay, so this possibility started when we understood that the sheriff's department might be interested in transitioning over to the historic depot. And so we've met, we visited with Victoria a bit. Our team has been to the brown shed. Our architect has been to the brown shed. And our team is looking forward to understanding if this is a path that town leadership would encourage us to try to go down together, or if we should remain on the historic depot route with blinders.
So are there any questions for Lori at this time?
Yes.
Are you talking about the memo or the plan?
Either.
Okay, I have questions. Well, I have a few comments about the plan, Lori.
Okay, just so you know, the plan is incredibly high level, as I referenced in the memo. The nothing is carved in stone. Nothing's even hardly written past pencil on the plan. It's just, an idea of things that we could try to undertake if this is the path we all decide together to go down. But go ahead, question.
Well, I appreciate having the visual tool, so thank you. I'm a visual learner and I like to see what it could look like, because I know the actual plan very well. And I'm really happy to see that you have planned parking spots all the way around. Well, I guess the west side and the south side. So that's a big relief. I guess I need to revisit, again, I'm a visual person. I need to revisit this site to the east of us because I don't know if Sergeant Chris is sitting here nodding. Maybe he understands that site better than I do. I'm curious as to what's there right now and what are we replacing? Is it asphalt? I'm not sure. I see a lot of gardening and patio and it's there's some flex space. I can see your main entrance is on that side. So I guess I'm just curious. Can anybody?
I think right now it is asphalt, like unimproved asphalt.
And I think the question right now is whether we would like staff to move forward with exploring this with Leaf, and I'm sure that and the sheriff, and I'm sure that we will see more concept plans in the future.
Awesome. Well, I love the initial concept. I love the idea, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Trustee Edding.
I guess question for I guess anybody out there. When we do this, do we go into a lease? Do we have a time commitment with them? Can you explain legally like what we're gonna be doing, how long this will last?
If this was handled similarly to the library, the town owns the site, and in this case, the building, and they would lease it or have some form of an agreement with them.
And what would the duration of the lease?
It could be, actually, that's a good question for Attorney Dibblin.
Yeah,
if it's more than a year.
Thanks, Victoria. So if it's under a year, it can be via resolution. If it's over a year, it has to be via ordinance. Generally we don't enter into super long-term leases of municipality because constitutionally can't really bind the hands of a future board. So any future board could choose to terminate that lease. And there may be consequences based on how the lease is written, but because of that risk, we generally don't go into, leases more than say 5 or 8 years at maximum. And so it'd be up to the board and their policy discretion as to how long that lease would be. But assuming it's a multi-year lease, it would be via ordinance, and we'd have to consider, the risks and benefits of that lease and make a policy determination as to how long it should be.
I do have a couple comments.
Utilities.
Yeah, that, things like the utility costs, the continuation of services, right now, that's also where, the people that live in the mountain area around us get their water.
Uh-huh.
There's some things that will have to move. So all that would be spelled out in the agreement with them.
Trustee Allison?
So for us, so I think it's a great idea, first of all. But so for us to do that, we have to move the police station and everything we have stored in there, right?
Correct.
So we have a
So,
plan for that.
yep, so here's some background on that, and I think Sergeant Christ is ready to make a few comments. But right now, it is the Boulder County Sheriff's Office substation. It consists of 2 very small areas that they utilize. And then we also have our long-term records there. Those would need another home, but in talking with leaf officials, they think that could be a later stage if need be, until we found something different. We have a goal to digitize our records, and when that happens, all of those can go to a company to be disposed of. But the biggest area of the building, 2/3 of it, is currently used for public works and parks equipment. Even though we have a brand new facility out east, you may or may not know that that was not an ideal choice for us, because the small equipment would have to be trailered into town every day and taken back out every night. So we continue to use this space for our small mowers, our golf carts, our 4-wheelers, those kinds of things. And then, basic hand tools and things, they don't have to drive out of town to get it. There was a phase 3 of Bone Park. And that did consist of a new storage building for that equipment. It would not have to be nearly as big. It would not have to be a tall building, but there's already in the drawings a place for that. We do not have it in our budgets. So we have talked about what are some options of trying to come up with that. David Cosgrove is on here. I think he's thinking that we probably, with the increased costs and design and engineering have gone up so much, that is probably going to be in the $400,000 range to do that. So we can start looking for grants. We can start, doing some groundwork maybe on that. But LEAF is also saying this is not, knowing that they were going to have to build on the other property. This could occur. Lori, do you want to tell them what time frame you were looking at?
Assuming all of the pieces fell together, I believe we think we could be in there within a year. And that would be, raising our money, putting the plan together, going through all of the approval processes, and then, retrofitting and renovating the space.
So that would give us some time in a budget season to go through. There's also a small piece of land behind the recycling center. If you can picture that, there's a kind of a little landing up there that's outside the floodplain. That could also be another site for that building potentially. That would then have a little more security around it, would be closed at night, those kinds of things. So there's a couple options we need to look at, but we weren't wanting to spend any time on this until we knew if the board was even interested. If you're interested, we're happy to do that and work together and start working through some of these things. Really the important issue is the sheriff, because we have it in our agreement with the sheriff's department that we will provide them the substation space. So as you heard earlier tonight, it sounds like Lyons Creates is still very interested in the building as well. So you will, we'll have to make some decisions and give us some direction. And then we can bring back, every month or whatever, and bring you an update on what we're finding out.
And thank you, Administrator Simmons. And Sergeant Chris, did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, I'll make just a few. And yeah, I jotted a few things down prior to this. We have kind of the easy part in all of this. All I got to do is move my stuff. So that's the easy part. But I want to bring up some pros for a move for the sheriff's office over there. One of our biggest things is we have co-responders on board now, and Lyons has their own seated co-responder getting ready to join us shortly.
You might, that's the mental health.
The mental health partners and those folks. So the whole idea and concept behind that is that they're embedded with us, sheriff's office. They operate under us and with us. So being together in the same building is fairly critical. They're that first responder with us out to the scene. So to find the co-responder wherever we put them in town, not next to us, is a little bit cumbersome. So then that immediately brings up just the whole space issue. So we have the smallest portion of that building as the substation. It's a small office for myself and 2 workstations for my guys. On any given day, I could have up to 5 people needing to use services out of the substation. So it's a stand and wait, jockey around, that type of thing. But the co-responder really kind of started pushing this issue. And then I had heard that through Victoria that the depot might be available. And then I started talking to Lori, and it started to seem like a win-win-win for everybody if this could roll this way. Another issue for us is radio reception out of the metal building is very difficult. We do have a base radio in there that we absolutely have to use all the time to radio out. So it's very hard to get reception on a portable pack. Therefore, at times my deputies can miss status checks or calls right off the bat, just because of where they're seated or standing in that building. We did bring out last week my radio techs with the sheriff's office to do a site inspection over there, knowing that it's a historic building and we have limitations on what we can do. I can't chainsaw the wall down and put up a radio tower and all that stuff. So I want to make sure that if we were to go over there, that we could go over there based on our needs as the sheriff's office, communications, Wi-Fi stuff, and they've determined that there's no problems there, that we really wouldn't have minimal to no problems. There's some accessibilities out front on a pole for a radio antenna. We can pipe and card wire in through existing conduit. So we're not changing anything really with the historical aspect of the building. All of our equipment and stuff like that, computers, standalone desks, things can be set in there without bolt to the wall, anything like that. So it's feasible, definitely feasible for us to do that. I think it's a great location, very visible. As soon as this kind of idea started going around, I'm kind of a mental creator and I've got this big vision over here already, you know, and thinking of signs and things like that, and just being a little bit more presentable to the public. A few years ago, when the Valley Bank building became vacant, I was drooling over that. I just thought, how great would that be? Everybody coming into town would know that we're here. What a criminal deterrent, right? There's 5 cop cars they're watching. So, but I couldn't compete with anything like that. So we stayed in the building we're in now. But then thinking about the depot over here and Broadway right there and Laverne Johnson Park and a lot of foot traffic, it just seems a little bit more readily accessible for folks in town and visitors and things like that. So I think that's another kind of big pro that we have. And the last thing I just want to throw out too is a critical incident. So a critical incident for us, I mean, I can bring up the SWAT team if we have some issues going on, a major wildfire that can be more utilized as command post than what we have already. We do the Halloween parades and the Christmas lights and stuff, and I usually bring up about 15 or 17 folks, and I got people standing outside the building trying to get a brief on what we're doing. It's just that small. So just going over there a few times, getting the tour from Victoria and understanding the layout and looking at it, it just looks like a perfect fit for the sheriff's office. So those are definitely some of the pros. I can't really think of any cons. So
Thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem Farrell, I want to make sure that I get your thoughts since I can't see you.
Yes. Hi, thank you. I appreciate that. I do actually have a couple of questions. Lori, considering the timing of what it would require for us to find a place and possibly even build something, seeking funding, budgeting, etc. The timeline would seem that that would be difficult for us to meet a 1-year vacant opportunity for you. Is your flexibility longer than a 1-year time frame to be occupied in there?
Yes, I think I was just indicating, I thought we could get it done in a year.
Okay.
But probably, 18 months, 12 to 18 months would probably be really comfortable for everything we would have to do and all of the other moving pieces with the town and the sheriff. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I don't think we could be ready in sooner than a year, and I would like to see it be done sooner than 2 years.
Okay, that's helpful. That leads to my second question. And Dave Cosgrove, this is for you. I'm just kind of curious, from the 2 areas that Administrator Simonson was identifying, what do you feel would be a time frame that you could accomplish having something built and ready for you?
I think the largest variable to that question would be available funding. And then site selection, the permitting portion of that probably would come into play, depending on where we wanted to build it. I think if it were located in Bone Park, there would be cost savings to the town over the long run there, just with being able to have some on-site materials and having equipment right there on site in the park. Either site would be doable of those sites that she mentioned. But really, I think a lot would have to do with, construction costs, available financing, and just supply and demand right now.
Okay, so that leads to my next person to ask, Administrator Simonson, what would be your estimation in terms of finding funding, and assuming we don't have it currently?
Yeah, well, as I said, we haven't spent a lot of time on that yet. We wanted to, first of all, hear from the board if this is something you want us to pursue. There is all sorts of different funding out there. And I know that LEAF was going to be looking after some funding to build their building. So we might be talking with them about who they have on their list, since we'll be the one doing that. But I don't have that answer yet. And, we have, Director Mitchell and I have started brainstorming different private foundations that might have an interest. We don't think, in talking with Director Cosgrove, that GoCo is a good option for this one. They would rather do another phase of the park or something more experiential. But no, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
If you tell me go, then we'll bring you back some options here in the next 2 weeks.
That makes sense. Okay, and then my last question is for Sergeant Christ, actually. Sergeant Christ, would you need the whole space of the depot? Do you envision that you would use all of it? Or could you expand into a portion of it? What are your thoughts on that?
So our thoughts right off the bat were use the whole space. And there's some legal ramifications for that as well. It'll be hard to subdivide based on CCIC and NCIC type of laws that we have to have restricted access for. So only certain people can come and go. The way the building is laid out for an office area and conference room for co-responders, an office for myself, and then a work area for the deputies. So it's actually a perfect size for the crew that I have. And it probably would actually negate anything if we tried to subdivide to some level, just based on the legal ramifications of computer access and things like that.
Okay. And actually I have one more question to follow up then. Do you envision or do you hold people that,
No, it's not a jail.
You don't want to build a jail, a cell.
Yeah, No, it's, no, we would hold nobody there, but it's a great place to bring in, people for interviews. And that's the other thing that, again, is a little bit of the driving force with co-responders is that mental health area that is so prevalent right now in law enforcement. 20 years ago when I got into this, I was dealing with 80-90% criminals and 20-10% of mental illness issues, and those numbers are literally reversed now. Our jail is 80% mental health people that need beds somewhere that committed a crime, things like that. So that really has driven the whole co-responder mental health issues that we have out there. And as the sheriff's office has come into play with the co-responder group, having an area for them to be able to bring somebody down, victims of domestic violence, sex assault, things like that, anything, and then people just flat out with a mental illness that rises to the level of not requiring to put them on a mental health hold because there are certain criteria for that. But those people that are in crisis, and there's a lot of business out there, unfortunately, and that's part of that use for that building is to have that space available. I've had at least half a dozen cases here in Lyons over just this year where we've had to bring somebody down to the substation, and it becomes a little difficult because it's like for the privacy factor, like come on guys, we're out, the co-responders need space. We actually got a young gal on an airplane back to New York. She was a domestic violence victim that night by just utilizing the co-responders and just what we had. It was a little cumbersome and clunky, but that's what this building will help us achieve a lot more efficiently for the people.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Trustee Williams?
It would seem to me that this is definitely something that LEAF wants to be looking at and a substation wants to be looking at. So it would seem that it's a wise thing for the town to be looking at what options exist for the things that are housed there at this time. It looks like it's pretty ideal for the other two.
Well, impressed too. We had a plan to replace this building. It wasn't on this time frame. So it was always in our plan as well.
Could you say a little bit more about the space that's behind the recycling?
Oh, there's a lot behind the recycling center. Dave, do you know how big that is, or can you pull that up from home? It's a small area that is out of the floodplain. The problem would be similar to what we faced after the flood. The road to it could be flooded.
Okay.
And so then you might be stuck with your equipment out there and no road to get there. So it's not necessarily ideal. What is nice about it is that gate closes at dusk and dawn, and it's very central, located to the pond system and the parks.
Oh, yeah, that's very empty space.
It is.
Yeah.
But Bone Park also, depending on how it was situated, you might be able to put a small office there, or even a very small living quarter. Then we wouldn't have to only have RV campers. We could have someone staying there, or have an office for staff, just like the crystals to step into when mothers implement. It just provides a really nice opportunity.
I've not seen that plan, that phase of that plan. Where were you looking?
It's in the Bone Park Master Plan. It's the Bone Park Master Plan that's part of the after flood recovery. And it's a phase 3. It shows 2 multi-sport courts and then a little area right in front of where the RV is parked now. A building, a very small building for storage of this small equipment.
Trustee Elson, your thoughts?
So yeah, I still think it's a great idea. Yes, I want to see more, I guess. See what the cost would be for a building, and also what else you could use the building for, like you said, something for someone to stay in, or if they need more offices. So make it not look at just what we need now, but the future too. So, but I think it's a fantastic idea.
Trustee Edding?
Just very strong support to the police station going out to the depot. I'm extremely excited about the co-responder program. I've heard great things about those. I think it's a much more enticing place for someone to go than what you currently have. I'm good with LEAF using the brown building, and that's the way to go.
I love these win-win situations. I wish it could be a triple win for the town. I'm wondering, just a suggestion out of curiosity, again, that east side that's calling to me and just seeing a lot of green area and open area. I don't know how big that space is, but I'm wondering if it could be a temporary solution for parking small vehicles, maybe a fenced in area. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I'm just thinking cost-wise and time-wise, is that an option while we're looking for funding, while we're trying to figure out what's the best solution? Could that be a temporary option? And could that be a phase 2 for LEAF to convert into a green space? Those are my thoughts, but I love the win-win. I'd love it to be a win-win-win.
There's 4 wins actually, because I think also we have to remember Lyons Creates, and they wanted to be part of the depot project. So I do want to, there was a very kind of casual discussion previously about, is there any other space in town that might work for them? And I do want to just let you know that in some discussions, we do have the whole western half of Sandstone Park where we currently have a visitor center that is quite antiquated. Not, I just say inadequate. I'll say that the bathrooms are getting pretty bad and things like that. So maybe can be a win for them as well to look at that space and create what works best for them, and also add a couple of public restrooms to the center of town, right across from the new hotel, so people go to the creative center. I think we need to create a win also to continue to help them find a location if you guys decide the sheriff is best to do it at the depot. And then definitely, I think it's a win for everyone from a campus kind of perspective here. If they, in talking with Lori Barton, she was saying that the exterior of the brown building, they probably would have it match the library. So there's some more, and then the historic depot and the historic town hall. If anybody at LEAF is in crisis, the sheriff is right there. If we want to work with someone on our utility plan, we're right here. The library is often used for people who need a place to be. So I think it's really neat to put all 4 of us right here together where we are within just literally the stone's throw of servicing with each other.
Thank you. Trustee Delman, your thoughts?
So it sounds like a great idea to me. The one thing I was thinking about parks, there's that building that has some bathrooms in between the soccer field, and that it seems like it's always closed. I wonder for putting the park stuff, if that could be expanded or if that wouldn't be enough space.
Yes, Director Cosgrove.
There would most likely not be enough space in that location to expand that building. At least if we wanted to stick with the conceptual plan for the flood recovery phase 3 options in that area. We're looking at probably needing something in the neighborhood of 1,800 to 2,200 square foot. And area that was looked at initially through the park's flood recovery process was the area directly east and a little bit north of the current park host site.
I think it's worth looking at.
And Mayor Pro Tem Farrell, do you have any final thoughts?
I'm all in favor. I think we should explore this further. I think, I like what Administrator Simons's suggestions are as a campus. I think that sounds so compelling, and the ability to include Lyons Creates in that. I just really think it's a great concept.
And I agree. So there's the direction to explore that.
We will explore. Great. So now, Lori Barton, you have to help me find funding.
I think Lori's pretty good at that.
Yes.
And so are you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So next up, we have the pavement assessment.
Well, Mayor and
Thank you, Sergeant Christ.
thank you very much. And I'll be there.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and trustees. So I put Dave Cosgrove, Director Cosgrove, and I, along with our engineer, Chris Jane, we're working on this pavement memo. I wanted to start introducing Chris Jane is with Murray Smith. As you may all know, we have an engineering contract with a firm that we use, and that's Murray Smith. And we work with a number of them, but Chris is the one we work with on a day-to-day basis, working on any of the emergency needs and other items that might need some of the engineering response to them. So the three of us have talked over the past year or so trying to put together a memo to update on the much larger report that was done back in 2020. So the memo that we put together is going over the projects that were previously done, trying to give you an update on that. And then it really goes into two parts, trying to discuss both the larger capital improvement projects that need to be done and some of the different ways you can do those capital improvement projects, or some of the different requirements that are out there depending on how bad the roads are. And then there's also the maintenance or preservation aspect, which is more the annual budget you want to put in for some of those roads that aren't quite as bad as the other roads are. If you've gone through that memo, I don't need to repeat all of it in there, but trying to go at the high level aspects, it really tries to get across the idea that trying to maintain some of the roads that have been slightly damaged or just have normal wear and tear on them can really extend the life for another 2 to 5 years, trying to give you more time to do some of the larger capital improvement projects that you need to get done. You mentioned in there how usually that's been coming out of the maintenance budget for the roads at about $45,000. But if you look at the overall plan that was done, and it goes through some different scenarios, but to get to one of those scenarios that we've been working with, at the end of 2025, it would be increasing that maintenance budget to about $85,000. So you can look into that aspect of it. The other one then was trying to determine how we want to handle the money that's been committed or that's been looked at for funding some of the larger capital improvement projects. The previous boards have been trying to put money out there so that we could either go out for a bond some point in the future and do some very large projects. Again, if you can keep showing that we have the capability to set aside, say, $300,000 a year, then we can show that we do have a source of funding and try to go for a very large bond to get the larger projects done. Or we can spend some of the funding that's out there on some of the roads that are in really bad shape, and those would need to be completely rebuilt. So we've given one possible option there based on what needs to be done underneath, what needs to be done long-term, in some cases for stormwater, and found the next available option that doesn't have other larger concerns to it. And you could work on that project with the funds. There's also what might be a medium level, that's the rehabilitation, which is you're milling off the top couple inches and trying to just redo the road in a partial fashion. And so that costs more than just the maintenance, but not quite as much as ripping out the entire road and putting it. And so you can get a little bit more done with that. As you can see, we had 4 basic projects, really split into 2 because there are 2 different areas of town that have 2 parts each. So you would kind of use those as 2 projects. And so we were really at the staff level trying to see what your thoughts were on where you wanted to go. Did you want to try to hold on to that and look for the bond? Did you want to spend some of that? Again, there's 300 that's already been funded. There's another 300 that was set to be funded in this year's budget. You could use a portion of that and then the other portion to go for bond. And the recommendation from staff, I suppose in closing, would be looking at it, it would appear to be the option from our perspective was to try to use some of the money. Let's continue to try to get some of the projects done as we have been doing. We don't have the grant funding out there this year for projects like we have had. But rather than do the really large scale project, which we can't do the entire road for, we can only do a couple blocks. We could do these other projects, so milling and overlaying of the road. And then you could get all of Eagle Canyon and Eagle Canyon Drive, Welch Court and Welch Drive back up to the higher level that they need to be at with 300,000. And then you would have the 300,000 that's being set aside for this year to continue to show that you're still watching the money and working for bond financing in the future.
And do more of Fifth Avenue or another
In the
project.
future, you could get the bond to fund the entire project that would need that.
Yeah.
And so like I say, I do have Director Cosgrove and Engineer Chris Jane all here to answer some of our questions, some of your questions.
Director Cosgrove.
In addition to that, I think, unless I missed it, the other recommendation or the other option would be for this year could be to add to what's already budgeted, which I believe is $43,000 in road-based patch and repair, which we've been using just in our regular budget for the pavement preservation or rehabilitation. Add an additional $42,000 to complete the 2022 pavement preservation recommendations that are in Appendix B. So you could get the rehabilitation that was outlined for Eagle Canyon and Welch, and then also get the 2022 pavement preservation recommendations for 2022 in Appendix B.
And that additional money would come from the streets fund.
Correct.
You could instead of putting up 300,000 that's budgeted for this year, we would take the 42,000 from that 300,000.
Got it. Okay.
To meet the 80,000 we need in operations and maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest toward those two.
Okay. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
So when I read this, I found it to be kind of confusing, and I'm actually having a hard time hearing a little bit. So I am going to ask for some clarification. When you just said, Administrator Simonson, so we have $43,000 that's already budgeted, and we're looking for what, $42,000 to get to the 85K, which is what that staff is asking for?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And
For the operations and maintenance, the annual stuff we have to do to keep ahead of this. And then the remaining will go toward capital of those two projects if you see that.
in the 85,000 will cover Eagle and Welch, which is what staff is prioritizing.
No. Eagle and Welch is the capital money you need of how much?
240.
240,000 are for Welch and Eagle. The 85,000 is just for crack sealing and
it's preservation.
It's preservation of what we currently have.
Okay. So I understand that better. Thank you. But I did drive all over that of what was recommended in here. And, you know, to me, the difference between 2nd Avenue and 5th Avenue is pretty drastic. And I was kind of, yes. And I, as it says in here, it requires a lot more, like stormwater drainage upgrades. And I don't have everything in front of me, but there was a lot of underground work that needs to take place. So I was wondering, do we have an idea of what that would require funding wise and timing wise? So in other words, in my mind, I thought, could we go with the approach that staff is recommending, but can we get some kind of a study on what the timing and the costs would be to put Second Avenue into the works? Because I also was curious, I know every year if we have a big rain, we end up having constant cleanup that we have to do, and then backfilling and all of that. So I was kind of wondering, well, what are those costs? And that ends up not being budgeted for, or we could be saving and putting and applying it towards having the thing actually repaired. So I don't want to throw that out, even though I understand that the recommendations, are maintenance and preservation and rehabilitation. But I think we've gotten to the point of no return on this. And, the community has really complained a lot about it too. So is there a way to do that as a third option, or at least start planning for it so we can add it to the budget in the next year or two?
So we do have the 25,000 in the budget for the design of stormwater on Second Avenue. And so the hope there was to try to decide whether or not the two options that were given in the stormwater master plan, one is about 200,000, the other is 1.8 million. Which one of those is one feasible? Which one do we want to try to go out for, especially now with the way the funding is out there for some of the ARPA funds? But so we do have money set aside for the design. We have to re-look at that. We had to spend extra money from the stormwater fund to repair Fourth Avenue stormwater, but hopefully I can still make the budget work in the stormwater fund and keep moving funds around and continue with that design project. And that would then help us determine how we could move forward with Second Avenue, and maybe we could wrap it in. At this point, we wanted to just make sure it was known. We didn't want to try to tackle that right now because of the underlying issues with stormwater.
So I'm in favor of moving forward with staff's recommendation and diving deeper into the Second Avenue.
Thank you. Trustee Eddie, you have a question?
Yeah, I've maybe got some high level questions. First of all, we still will be getting a water share training, right?
Yes.
Okay. So could we add bonds to that as well? A bond training as well?
I'm not the one for bonds, but maybe.
Well, somebody, right?
We're looking at you, Cassie.
Because when we talk about getting bonds, I'd like to really know, what are we really doing here?
Yeah, there can be a whole session on how to finance capital improvements.
Great.
Because it's more than just bonds, but
All right.
Wonderful.
we can start looking at all sorts of financing options that communities use.
Okay. All right. So back to this whole road thing. So I spent the better part of this afternoon reading this really interesting pavement management budget options report that we're talking about, right? It came out in March 2020. So the last board had it their entire duration. As a matter of fact, it came out a month before they were seated. What was their thoughts? I mean, because it's great. It gives you these scenarios to maintain, to improve the PCI, to maintain the PCI, or to let it slip. What were their thoughts? What were they going for?
A lot of that was being covered by the grant funded project. So we were really looking at that, what was accomplished there, that million really came out of higher level projects, or not all grant funded. I guess Long Peak was also somewhat grant funded. But looking at, for them, they were the first board to really be able to look at anything that wasn't pure flood recovery.
Sure.
So they started looking at that, and it was, well, okay, we're already working a little bit on the south side of town with all the work that was done there, again, from grant funding to actually improve the roads after the damage from the flood recovery work that then damaged the road. I don't know that they picked the specific category yet out of those 5 options. I think at that time it was still really just maintain the current level and try to do the maintenance work, because we didn't have a source to fund it in the beginning. And that was when they first looked at it and said, hey, let's try to build up some funding. And that was where they were setting aside the 300,000. And it may have been that they knew they didn't have time to really get into what that would be spent on, because they were just getting it started and building it up for the next board to work with.
Okay, so this says like in 2020, our PCI was 68. Do we measure the PCI every year? Do we know that? Or do we have a report card on where we are in 2022? Did our PCI slip? Or did it work? Or how are we doing?
Yeah, sure. I can try to address that. So as of right now, no, we don't go out and look at we haven't the last couple of years. It hasn't been part of the process, I guess, of go out every year and look at each street and kind of re-rank it. And thank you for having me here tonight, by the way. But we, as if you've delved into that report in detail, you've probably noticed that there is basically some inherent deterioration every year for each street. It just basically it's over time, the asphalt component, the petroleum component of the asphalt pavement breaks down with the sun, and then just wear and tear from snow, frost, precipitation, and then the wear and tear from the vehicles as well. So in general, if you're not maintaining it or improving it, then it's going to just continue as an overall thing, continue to deteriorate. As of 2020, I would say the overall, and I don't have the report in front of me, but I would say it's increased since that. So that was kind of a composite score of the entire street network for the town of Lyons. And since that score was issued, the town has completed the 2020 paving projects. We completed as Aaron mentioned earlier, the Longs Peak, which was in really bad shape. So the overall score, the overall street network has improved since that report has been issued, I would say. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but then there are streets that just continue to decline on a yearly basis, which as Aaron or as Director Kaplan and Director Cosgrove have mentioned, some of the maintenance, the preservation, the crack sealing, that's what that is to do, is try to maintain the current PCI, pavement condition index, of that particular street and prolong the life of that with some preservation. And then there's streets that are so far gone, as previously mentioned with Second Avenue, putting some, sealing some of the cracks out there. And we did do some crack sealing last fall and some patching in some of the worst areas to try and put a Band-Aid on it, if you will, and try to hold it together. But there's only so much you can do, and to really improve the PCI of a road like Second Avenue, it would need to be completely replaced. So that was a long-winded answer, I guess, to your question about the overall street network PCI. I would say in general, there's certainly streets that have decreased individually. Some streets, such as Longs Peak, have increased substantially since 2020. And overall, the town's PCI has gone up since that report.
Questions? No? Okay. Well, what Mayor Pro Tem expressed her thoughts about what we should do. So I started, I think, on that side last time. So Trustee Delman.
And what was the question?
The question is, which direction do we want to give to staff? Do we want to take the recommendation?
I would go with taking the recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to just really briefly share out the options again, what we're looking at?
Right, thank you, Mayor Rogan. And I did want to mention on that, since you gave me the option with the preservation aspect, there is a little bit more, as you might have seen around town, the crack sealing that's been done. That and the patching of some of the areas that are smaller, maybe a pothole or something like that, are what we've seen. We've not done any chip or slurry sealing, which is another minor it's say 1, 2, 3, 4, it's number 2. instead of mill and overlay, you can patch, then you can also try to do the chips and slurry seal as part of the preservation. So we were looking at doing some of that because some of the streets can't just have a crack seal anymore. And that was part of why you might increase the budget from the 43,000 currently to the 85,000. So that's the maintenance side of it. We were looking at, do you use 42,000 of 300 that was being set aside for large projects on maintenance? So you're increasing your budget at that 43 to the 85. And then on the capital side, there are just save all the money that's there. That'd be the 300 existing, plus if you did improve the maintenance, the 255, I think you'd be adding. So you keep the 555,000, or you keep the full 600,000 and you don't change the maintenance portion either. So we're really looking at two parts, the maintenance and the capital improvements. You don't do anything, you keep the 600,000 in there to say, hey, we have 600,000, we go look for a bond. You increase the maintenance this year so that we can start maybe doing some of the slurry and chip sealing in addition to the patch. And that goes up to 85,000, and then you don't touch the rest of it. Or you could then say you want to spend some of the funds, either, we said, on a full rebuild of a couple blocks. In this case, the only one we saw that would work right away was Fifth, because McConnell is also bad. That wasn't talked about, but with the project going on there, we thought that wasn't one to be done. Or you could do the somewhat mid-tier level of getting Eagle Canyon and Welch Court in that area, mill and overlay for the 300,000. Yes, that was our recommendation, was doing the 300,000 mill and overlay for Eagle Canyon area, Welch Court, Welch Drive, put 43,000 more into the maintenance budget, put it up to 85,000, and then you keep the 265, 255 set aside still more for the future funding next project.
Okay, so can we summarize that really clearly? So your final recommendation, it was a $300,000 number, right?
We're going to spend 300,000 on the mill and overlay of Eagle Canyon and Welch.
All right.
Also put 43,000 towards the maintenance budget.
Okay. And then keep 265,000 set aside.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we robbing Peter to pay Paul here? Is something being taken out of something?
You're using part of the capital, what's being set aside for capital for streets improvement. It depends if that is, if you consider doing the chip and slurry seal of some road to be enough of a capital improvement project to use that fund. It's also being budgeted towards streets. So it's really, do you want to save it to try to do something larger in the future?
And so I can speak to this a little bit, having been on the previous board. The previous board was very, very strongly for keeping this money, for not touching this money in order to float a bond to do bigger projects. And I don't know enough about bonds to know how much would need to be in a fund. I think the idea, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're showing good faith that we know how to save money. We're responsible with money. So I think the question here is, do we want to potentially delay doing that by using this money to make repairs now?
Well, and to get a bond or some type of financing, you have to have a mechanism to show how you're going to pay it back. And so that's really, I think some of it was to be able to do a larger capital project, whether it be cash or to leverage with bonding. But we will, Director Eister and I will put together this how to finance capital projects presentation. In regard to robbing Peter to pay Paul, you know, the board at any time can set this much aside for operations and maintenance and this much for capital. What's happened is we've updated our plan, and now the recommendation is shift that 45,000 so that we can get some more slurry seal done too, and that will save even a few more blocks in town. So basically, the recommendation from the staff is to spend the money to update Welch and Eagle Canyon, spend a little more on some slurry seal, and then our regular operations.
So why don't we do this way? Why don't we talk about the increase in operations and maintenance money first and then come back to the.
Yeah,
Is that-
this isn't a resolution, it's really direction.
Yeah.
So once we enter a contract with someone, we'll bring that back to you via resolution.
Okay.
And a budget adjustment if we need it at the end of the year for that operations.
Okay. Okay. So when we're talking about the increase in funding for maintenance, Trustee Delman, what do you think about that? Yay, nay?
Well, so doing a milling and overlay, how long would that last?
And that's really on the capital improvement side more. That's using the 300,000. And that should bring the road back up. Chris, does it bring it back up to almost a brand new road, or what do you say, mill and overlay versus a full depth? So the mill and overlay, how long would that bring the road back?
Yeah, it would bring it back to basically like new conditions. The idea with a mill and, pardon me, the idea with a mill and overlay is, again, you know, we mentioned 2nd Avenue, 5th Avenue, even McConnell. Those streets are those streets are too far gone to try and do a mill and overlay because the structural integrity of the pavement and probably the underlying base course is not what it once was and not what it was designed to be. It's failed to the point of needing to be replaced. The idea with a mill and overlay is you're basically treating the top couple inches, removing it with the milling operation, and then putting a new lift of pavement down over the top to seal out the water and put a new, nice, smooth riding surface back on that street. And so essentially you're removing the worst of the pavement, leaving what's left, leaving the good stuff that's left in the base underneath because it's still structurally sound. And so it's a cheaper extension, but the result is a like new street.
And how about the chip and slurry seal? Because that may have been, so that's the maintenance one that we're adding the 43,000 for potentially is to do more maintenance, and that includes the chip and slurry. How long does that usually get your road to rent?
And so, yeah, lengthwise with the mill and overlay, I guess I didn't necessarily answer that. Again, hopefully you're restoring that to you know the entire life of the pavement structure of 15 to 20 years if it's continued to be maintained with crack sealing and different things. The chip and slurry seal is a treatment to be applied to pavements that are in relatively good condition. And that chip seal, and the difference between a chip seal and slurry seal is really the slurry seal is you put down an asphalt mixture, and then you let that harden and dry. And the idea is that it seals out the water. It also adds basically a layer of protection, if you will, to that pavement from mostly, you know, weather and the sun and UV rays, not so much a riding surface. And then the chip seal, you put down an asphalt mixture and then you cover it with small rock chips that provides a wearing surface on top of that. And again, the idea is to, number one, seal and protect that asphalt that is in relatively good condition, and two, provide kind of a new wearing surface that protects that asphalt from vehicular traffic, snow plows, etc. And so again, you're just trying to extend the life, and those treatments generally last, you know, between 2 and 5 years in and of themselves. And so you're just trying to extend the overall life of that pavement by approximately 2 to 5 years.
Trustee Delman, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Dati.
Again, getting back to that win-win situation, I like the idea of preservation, rehabilitation, and I also like the idea that Pro Tem Farrell put forth for the stormwater drainage plan in the future for second half. I think we made it very clear that one of our priorities was streets and infrastructure. We have a capital improvement fund here. I feel like we need to invest in our streets.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're okay with the additional $43,000 and $300,000.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Edding?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I don't fully understand everything. There's a lot in here. I like this figure 1, the street condition over time that's in that report. I understand that the degradation of a street is not a linear relationship, that it's good for a while, but then when it falls past the point, it's totally gone. So it sounds like what we're doing is we're paying a little bit to buy a lot more time at this point. If
Yeah.
that's what we're doing, then I agree with it. So let's just put it at that high level.
Great.
So I think I support the staff recommendation, is it sounds like that's what you're trying to do. And I'd like to learn a lot more about bonds.
Yeah. Okay. Trustee Elson?
Yep, I'm the same. So I think we should do both. A little prejudice though. I live in Welch Drive, so I think it should both.
We're not voting.
I know. No, but I think it's a great idea. It makes sense to preserve what you have, so you're not spending a lot more further down the road. So I agree.
Trustee Williams?
I'm in favor as well, but I'm also curious that you're also looking at that number for 2023 and 2024.
Right. So
So,
to think about that as you plan your next budget.
yeah,
And I agree as well. So there you go.
Mayor Rogan?
Oh, just Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry.
Yes, actually, I'm going to be a little bit of a I'm not exactly on board with everybody, and yet it sounds like you have a consensus, but I just feel I'm not ready to commit to a $300,000 yet without understanding more about bonds. So to me, I feel like I want to reserve that, or the 240,000 for Eagle and Welch. Personally, I'd like more information. So I'm reserving my vote on the 300,000 at this point until I understand this better.
That's a really great point. And so let me ask you, what's the urgency on having a decision on this?
Well, we can always move forward and at least get the RFPs ready for advertisement. We don't even know if the price is going to come in within our budget. So
Mhm.
that always is out there for a while, a few weeks. So we should be able to get some answers on those. We don't have to accept it. We just get our homework done. Otherwise, we end up too late in the season.
Yeah.
And then it gets pushed back again and people think you didn't do anything. That is why we put it on tonight. We were not even willing to wait 2 more weeks because the asphalt crews were saying, if we don't have you on our schedule the next few weeks, you're out till next year.
What about,
Yeah,
are you okay with that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you.
we can at least go get the bids out and see what they come in at.
Okay,
And in the meantime, get you some information.
that sounds
Eventually
good.
push it out till next spring, right?
Well,
Well, if you had the bids and they were too high or something, we have it at least
Then-
done, ready to go
Yeah,
and be first on the list.
okay, okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about the Lyons Dirt Bike Jump Park and then take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
How's that?
This item was actually just put on as a request by a couple of trustees who expressed that this is kind of a confusing title for a jump park that takes a lot of energy in remembering what order it goes in. So David Cosgrove is on here, Director Cosgrove. He was on staff when this got named. So he might be able to provide a little background on this, but again, this is just, again, a nod on whether or not the board has an interest in trying to simplify that name. And if so, if you have ideas on how you'd like that to be done, if you want to have a contest in town, or if you want to have staff bring you some options, or Park and Rec bring options, or all of the above. But Director Cosgrove, if you can give just a real brief background of how we got that name, so we're not offending anyone if we change it. And then just we'd like to hear from the board if you want us to pursue this. It is not time sensitive, other than the fact that it's going to be reshaped here very soon, and the signs will be updated potentially, and do it with that. So
Sure. It actually was just derived from the group that was kind of the grassroots effort behind it. I don't know how many of you have the background, but the bike park itself was really a grassroots effort by local bike shops and parents through the Lyons outdoor games. It actually just started as some dirt mounds out there in that vicinity of Bone Park where the outdoor games took place. And then a more formal proposal was brought to the Board of Trustees through those bike shops to kind of make it into the facility that it is now. A lot of donated materials and labor went into the building of the facility and the design. Lee Likes Bikes out of Boulder was involved with the pump track design and the design of the rest of the facility. And that was the name that was brought forth. So I don't think it has a special place in anyone's heart necessarily. I think it was just probably a name that came from some of the other parks in the region at the time. And so that was just kind of what fell into place.
All right. And thank you, Director Cosgrove. And Attorney Dittman, I believe you've done some in-depth research on the issue. Would you care to enlighten us?
Yeah, so as the board may know, I'm a pretty avid mountain biker. I've been a user of the park, and I'm also a member of Trail Forks and Mountain Bike Project, were the two main apps you use to find trails for mountain biking. And in both apps, it's called the Lyons Bike Park. Also, I have a copy with me of Lee's mountain bike clinic book, and I'm pretty sure it's called the Lyons Bike Park in there too. So that's kind of interesting. That's called the Dirt Jump Park. I would also say that from my personal experience, it's not just a dirt jump park. It also has a pump track and a skills area. And with the rehabilitation we just approved, it's going to have more of those features. And so it's kind of not really reflective of what actually the park is. And so I'm speaking as a mountain biker more so than your attorney, but those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff on this issue?
I think Dave has his hand raised.
Yes, Director Cosgrove.
I was just going to reiterate or echo all of those sentiments from Attorney Dittman. Those are all true. We use the facility for lots of different programming and different events, and I have seen those postings and have seen it mapped on different sites as just Lyons Bike Park, and probably is a more fitting simple name or something to that effect.
Great. So I would like to if we want to change the name of the park, do we need to do it by resolution, Brandon?
Not if it wasn't named.
Yeah, I mean, not if it wasn't originally named via resolution. I mean, traditionally, I think we've named things via resolution, so we could. I mean, it would be pretty easy, just to kind of document it.
I would like to propose that we rename it to Lyons Bike Park. You got it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we don't.
I was turning around.
Mayor Pro Tem, are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Done.
Great. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So let's take a break until 9:20, so we can stretch our legs, if that works. Yeah. That's
Lyons
right.
Bike Park, it is.
9
Maybe she
minutes.
be the Lions.
Oh, see, now you're gonna have to do an amendment or resolution.
Thank you for
Just
just
block out the screen.
motioning for that to
Well,
go through.
you know,
It just
I
makes
kind of
perfect
like
sense.
how.
I know. I know.
Oh, you don't have
No,
a video stop this,
Another
recording,
50.
go, Laura. Don't please.
Item is trustee reports. We started on that side last time, so we'll start with trustee. With trustee Delman.
And I'm Parks and Rec. Let's see what, I did not take notes. There was a lot of talk about the possible trails and the trail out to 36 along 66. And that's, I guess that's about all I have.
Okay. Trustee Dottie.
So the Economic Vitality Committee has not met since our last board meeting, but we will be meeting Wednesday morning at 9:30. The Housing and Human Services Commission met last Monday. I was able to share the photo presentation. Trustee Elson and I attended the Academy Place grand opening, took lots of photos. They were really interested to see the quality of workmanship and the type of structure that Summit Housing could build. In this case, it was apartment buildings, so it's a little bit different than fourplexes or individual homes. They're still very excited about the application process for the 40 units. They were hoping to hear more about the guidelines for applications and income levels and seeing those copies of contracts with Summit and the state. And they were hoping that Administrator Simonson could confirm with the state. I know you're going to reach out to the state about the preference for people who were impacted by the flood and people who either live or work in Lyons. So
I did reach out to him, but I have not heard back.
okay, great. So if I could go back to them with something next meeting, that would be awesome. They're just biting at the bit. That's a really good question. I feel like it's June 13th. Would you be able to attend that meeting?
Yeah, hopefully. I think it's a 13th.
I need to double check, but yeah, I will send you the date. That's all.
Thank you. Trustee Edding.
Yeah, so I attended my first UEB meeting. I tell you, that group, they're all engineers, they're all scientists. I think they all have PhDs. They get into the weeds really quickly. And so I'm gonna have to really rely on Aaron because I can't, just all over the place. But they were interested in the water shares, the decision they had made about spirit hounds. I would recommend that if that does come up again, like spirit hounds cannot purchase the water shares and we have to make some decision, that we get a recommendation from the UEB. They follow that closely. And, it is definitely a commission where there's some very smart people that if we listen to, it would be good for us to listen to them. And then continuing on with really smart people, I have figured out who to get a hold of in the Student Advisory Committee, which is Mrs. Kaplan, or Miss Kaplan, Miss Maya Kaplan. She's responded. She's been fantastic. We are going to go out to CMEX on Wednesday at 3:30. The CMEX is going to meet with the Student Advisory Committee, and I don't know who else is going on in that meeting, but it's in regards to employment or career opportunities for students out of the school systems around here that might not be directly going on to college or want some type of or going on to some type of trade school. So that is at 3:30. There's not another UEB meeting because I believe Jim Kerr is going to Kearney, Nebraska for a MEAN, MEAN, which is some utility meeting in Kearney or something. Yep.
Electric provider.
It's an electric provider. So, and they talked a lot about solar, but I'll let Aaron talk about that. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Hi, yes. So I met with the PCDC last Monday, and they were super interested in the fact that we put together a list of priorities. And so they've actually decided to do the same thing. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think what they were they haven't done it yet, but that's going to be something on their agenda to see how closely it aligns or might, be different than what the Board of Trustees did. So I thought that was really cool. They updated about the comprehensive plan and wildfire mitigation based on kind of what our discussion was the prior Monday. So it's more informative versus making any decisions per se. So it was a relatively brief meeting. From a comprehensive standpoint, though, I will say that the UEB had some questions, and I am going to be having a meeting with them and putting them kind of doing a one-on-one meeting with Clarion as a follow-up. I suspect that, Greg, I appreciate your, Trustee Edding, I appreciate that you brought up that they are super smart and get down into the weeds quickly. And I think that we have a combination of needing to appreciate that the current framework is very high level, and that we really have not delved down into the details and the policies. And yet maybe there is some stuff that at the high level, we still are not appropriately appreciating that they, have some concerns for. So I think we're going to both learn a lot and hopefully clarify some stuff so that they can feel good about the comprehensive plan. And so that's where PCDC is currently.
Thank you so much. Trustee Elson.
All right, so the Ecology Advisory Commission, they actually have, there's a presentation tomorrow with the middle senior high school that the elementary school is going to be doing. So there's going to be a presentation about the Lyons feeder system for student reports on the year's environmental leadership units. So I don't know what it is, but I'm looking forward to finding out what it is. So that's tomorrow from 6 to 7:15. And then that's our next meeting. So we'll figure out what happens after that. And then we'll be, Sustainable Futures, is it? Second one. So we met last Thursday, and there was a lot of great discussion. Same thing too, a lot of smart, really smart people. Things some that I don't understand the other, but they discussed about fossil fuel versus people buying things, but I can't get into that. The so I'm the outlier on that one. Everyone rides bikes, drives electric cars, and I have my huge truck that's a gas guzzler. But I walked to the meeting to go. So we talked about doing a green tour possibly with talking about electrification of getting everyone onto electric. Talked about for a new position for a coordinator, potentially sending something to the board later on this year, I believe. There's this talked about the branch pickup going on today and tomorrow. There's a trail cleanup this coming weekend. It's going to be in Boulder Park, 8:30 to 11. If anyone wants to come help up and pick up on the streams.
Is that the river?
The river cleanup, yes. They're going to meet at Boulder Park, I believe at 8:30 and get assignments. I think that's it. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Williams.
So the Historic Preservation Committee met last Wednesday. An update on the walking tour with the app called Clio. The museum has a walking tour of 13 sandstone buildings. There's from there. They'd like to see the train depot go through the designation as well as the town building. Both town hall and the depot building should have local designation for historic preservation. They would like to create a form for local designation that can be put on the town website. And they would like to formalize permit fee waiver, tax credits, monetary incentives, so they understand that's not likely, to encourage people to apply for designation. BCDC was represented there, so they're going to assist in that. But they know that there are only 4 items in general provisions in the municipal code for designation, and they kind of wondered if that's adequate, and they're going to pull applications and provisions from other similar sized towns to see what's appropriate there. And they want to create a new tour event, looking at the darker sides of town for October, including making sure that one of those stops is the shooting at the saloon that took place in the saloon that was now main stage. So this then created a lot of interest in exactly who was shot. They also want to work on HPC recruitment. Brianna's going to create a brochure looking for people with anthropological, historical research, archaeology, architect, business owners. I happen to be all of those, so I'm not any of them. For the record. And there are either one or two spaces open. Archaeological and historical backgrounds is their first priority. That's it.
Thank you so much. So the LAHC met, but you heard Lauren's presentation earlier, so I'm not going to repeat everything that they're doing. And then on Friday, we hosted the Lyons third grade class here at Town Hall. Administrator Simonson and thank you, gosh. And Deputy Clerk Davis did a phenomenal job engaging 45 to 8-year-olds for 3 hours. It was great. It was super fun. It was great to see the kids get excited about local government. So, and that's it for me. So let's move on to staff reports. Director Kaplan.
So for my utility update, I really just wanted to start to give you somewhat of a high level aspect on some of the different utilities there, and then give a quick review on some of the capital improvement projects that are going on. And that was really about it. Just to put it in there that it's something that's not time sensitive. So if you didn't have a chance to read it because there's so much else going on, it'll still be relevant next week.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Director Kaplan? Okay. Finance report, Director Eystone.
Hi, everybody. If you'd like, I can share my screen and you can look at the report. Sometimes that's helpful to have a visual there. So
please.
One moment. Okay, so this brief report is going to give you an update through the end of April. And so that's most of the information is through the end of April, with the exception of sales tax, because of the timing when we get sales tax. Sometimes we know those numbers a little bit ahead of time. So while they're still preliminary, we did get the bulk of it in. So this is our best estimate for sales in March, for which we receive revenue from the state in May. So as you can see, we are up from the same time last year. Our first 2 months were a little bit slower, but this one was definitely higher. So this puts us year-to-date receipts up approximately 21% from the same time last year, which is about $42,000. So that's definitely a positive thing. We did in our budget estimate that we would be up about 5.5%. So this is still very positive over our budget projections. So that's great. There were a few anomalies though that happened with penalties and interest with late payments and stuff that are usually pretty easy to quantify. And it was about $11,000 to $12,000 for the month. So even without those though, we would have still been up for the year. So that's great. Our estimate of that 137,000 being local was about 53%. So that's still a great amount. You'll see this number will increase over the summer months as we get the festivals and weddings and things like that. And this is just our visual that shows you the orange line is where we are this year in comparison to our prior years. So it's just a nice visual to compare the last couple of years. And with our revenue to expenditures, all of our revenue is higher than our expenses in the general fund, the electric fund, and the Parks and Rec fund. There are a couple of funds where it is not, and that's the water fund and the sanitation fund. And I'll just point out, and this will come up in the next couple of slides as well, is that we had debt payments in both of those funds, so that you'll always see higher expenditures in relation to the revenues just because of that. And then in addition, in the water fund, we had the Longs Peak project that rolled over from 2021. So we're finishing that off, so you'll see those higher expenses as well. And then in the stormwater fund, that was just a minor difference there. The revenue year to date to where we thought we would be this time in the budget. We are higher in all of the funds, with the exception of the Parks and Rec fund, and that's just a very minor difference there. So definitely a positive thing. And as a reminder, those year-to-date budget amounts are based on 3-year averages for the departments. And so the expenditures year-to-date for in comparison to the budget, we do have a couple of funds where the expenses are a little bit higher than where we thought that they would be. But again, those are related to those, the debt service payments. So in the sanitation fund, we just paid that debt service payment 1 month early. And that's just due to a timing of our AP cycle. And then the water fund again is related to the Longs Peak project as well. We do see that the Parks and Rec fund and the general fund are a decent amount lower than where we thought for budget purposes. And there is some vacancy savings that we've been recognizing with some of those, in addition to some transfers that are related to capital projects that typically the timing of those are harder to predict because they usually follow the cycle of the capital project or they happen at the end of the year. So you'll see those fluctuate a couple of times throughout the year as well, but definitely nothing I'm concerned about. And then this is just our attorney year-to-date fees that are paid. And thus far we've paid just a little over $61,000. And this was just a number that was previously requested by prior boards. So I'm just keeping it on there for everybody. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Director Eyestone. Any questions?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
A couple things. One was the chart that you do, which it was always one of my favorites and it still is. It's the monthly sales tax comparison where, each year the line seems to be a lot bigger or higher than the previous years. And I was just going to make a recommendation that perhaps that would be something that we could advertise a little bit as a possibility. Could we put that perhaps in one of our newsletter blasts or in a paper? I just think that it could give our community a little bit more of an idea of where we are, because I don't know that a lot of people show up to our meetings, hence, where we are this evening in terms of, so few of us on here. And so I just think that it would be an awesome thing to promote. So just a suggestion. And then I was curious, when I was reading through, it looked like there was a slide that said that 29% of sales tax goes to Parks and Recreation. And then I wanted to ask, 1% was voted on for sales tax to go to Parks and Recreation. So is that 1% inside the 29, or is that 1% in addition to the 29%?
The 1% is the 29%. So of the 3.5% that we collect for non-marijuana related sales tax, 29%, it's approximately usually about 29% that gets allocated towards the Parks and Rec fund. And then the additional 71% goes towards the general fund, in addition to all the marijuana related sales tax.
Okay, so then the capital improvements that money is coming out of the general fund?
That's correct. Out of general fund excess revenues after all operational expenses were met. So for example, if we had higher operational expenses in any given year, we may not be able to transfer as much to the capital fund. You know, it just kind of depends. It's usually the, you know, whatever excess we have, then we usually, you know, might prioritize capital transfers, capital projects. So it's really, you can't say that it's any one source of revenue because it's really just all excess revenue.
Okay, hence the name capital, because it's kind of the capital of.
Yeah.
But what I was wondering is if we do need to concentrate on our capital improvements, is it at all reasonable or feasible? And sorry, Director Cosgrove, but I am going to pick on parks. I'm wondering if we did consider, or could we consider a percentage instead of maybe 29% going to parks, 27% goes to parks, and we take 2 and move that over regularly into the capital improvement. And I'm just wondering if that's another source of funding opportunity there. So I don't know how that 29% came about. So I was just kind of curious about that.
It is in the code that way, that 1% be, or the 1% of the sales tax be designated towards park and recreation purposes. So we would have to adjust that.
Do we know if that was done via a ballot measure? If it was, it would probably require another ballot measure.
I don't know.
It was a ballot measure.
Okay.
So it would have to go back to the people to change it.
But I mean, I'm not, maybe it's splitting hairs. I mean, could we just be saying that a portion of that park's budget is taken away? So I don't know. I just am wondering because it does, right? Yeah.
And there may be an argument there that since you're lowering taxes effectively, I mean, you're not changing the tax structure at all. The total amount of tax is the same. That doesn't create a new Tabor issue. And then you can just do it via an ordinance. Now, I mean, politically, you know, that for you guys to evaluate as trustees, but the people voted on it being 29%, a change at 27 may have consequences. It may not create a Tabor issue though, because you're not increasing the total amount of taxes.
It's just reallocating a little bit. And so what I was wondering then is if it needed to go to vote, you know, for being politically PC correct or whatever, you know, it's not increasing taxes or reducing taxes. It's just a reallocation of maybe temporarily. And I don't know if it's even would be enough to make a difference, you know, and maybe bonding really is a better choice, not having enough information. But I was just curious about maybe that being something to consider.
Yeah, I think we want to do some more research on that. If that was something the board gave direction on as a whole, just to make sure that we weren't creating any sort of issues legally by changing what was a previously approved voter tax measure.
So Mayor Rogan, that would just be a suggestion that perhaps that's something we could discuss at some point.
Great, thank you so much. Trustee Edding, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a really simple question. You mentioned that the sales tax revenue came in greater than projected. I'm just asking, how do you project what it's going to be and how accurate have those projections been?
That is a good question. So when we did the budget last year, we were pretty late in the year. So we had a good idea of what had already come in. And so we utilized the state projection numbers as well. And so we estimated to be conservative, I believe the state projection was 7.5%, but they're on the state fiscal year. And so and then their next year was a little bit lower. So because we overlapped 2 of those fiscal years, we kind of just backed into the 5.5% to be conservative. So when we did the yearly budget, we did an overall increase of 5.5% of our 2021 projections. And then we use a 3-year average to figure out the monthly collections based on what we've collected, you know, on a monthly basis over 3 years. So I would say not a perfect science by any means. We typically see a pretty big jump in the summer months in our sales tax. And because we increased so much from 2018, for example, and 2019 as well, just due to the online sales. So it's, you know, that has kind of made it a little bit trickier to project on a monthly basis, but definitely not a perfect science, but that's how we do those monthly projections.
But you would say the projections are on the conservative side.
Yes.
Always on the conservative side. And so we usually overperform.
I can't speak to what's been done in the past, but the way that I do budgeting is I am more conservative than not.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anybody else? I have 2 quick questions. One is the attorney fees. Does that include Honeywell?
It does.
Okay. And then the electric fund expenditures seem like they were higher than anticipated, not by much, but I'm just curious about why.
I believe that, yes, and I did not address that. I apologize. So we have the Longmont pump station and undergrounding project that we're doing. And so that's offset by the revenue. So when we budgeted, we didn't budget the revenue or the expense for the Longmont portion of it. So even though they washed themselves out, you see that increase. So when I do the budget amendment towards the end of the year, we'll be adding those revenues and expenses in just so that we don't over appropriate or don't overspend what the appropriations are. But in the end, it's a wash.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Administrator's report.
Thank you. I do have, my report is there, so if people have questions, but really probably the biggest item this last couple of weeks was that CEMEX has applied to extend their mining permit. And the town of Lyons will have the opportunity to, we will be a referral agency, so they will be listening and wanting our feedback on that. And so I'm talking with the mayor. We have allocated our next workshop to go through the referral packets, 228-page packets. And so, as you all know, we have an IGA with the county about CEMEX's use and future uses. And so the mayor has asked that the planning commission take a look at this referral packet and give us a recommendation that we do feel like it does need its due diligence to be able to give them a comprehensive response and not just a no response on this one. So we have switched Water 101 to June 20th meeting workshop because this has to be back to them by June, I think it's 8th, and our workshop will be the 6th. So we are going to be spending a little time on that. COVID, as you guys all know, is on the rise, the number of cases, although the severity of cases is not. So we will continue to monitor that and let you know if we see any major changes in that area. But since you did extend the disaster, the pandemic emergency through September, and we're seeing this rise, I feel like we still give you that data every 2 weeks. Trustee Dati had a good question. She said, what are all these things in our packet? All these little just add-ons. So what those are is, as you guys know, we split the department heads into one report a month. All of those reports used to just come to me and I would condense those into just an admin report. And the last board and mayor wanted more detail. And so now we have 3 different reports at each meeting. So that would be up to you, but in this case, it was the community relations report came to me, but it was on the end of the day. And sometimes those don't get put in the same order as intended. So the issue that was in here from Director Mitchell's area is that we wanted to make sure that the board and the public knows that there are visions of regional trails between Lyons and Longmont and via the CEMEX application, actually. They have apparently gotten permission or are working toward an easement that would take it diagonally over to Longmont. And then, as you heard tonight and saw tonight, a Boulder County trail or bike trail that will be potential, most likely on the east side of 36. So I wanted to just show you and make sure the public knows that that is in the works and being discussed as part of also this Vision Zero, which you'll continue to hear more about over the coming years. Zero interactions between bikes and peds and cars. That's the goal. There's quite a bit, this always happens in the spring. Colorado Tourism Office really picks up. They start getting out all their advertising for national parks and summer trips and all of that. So the staff have been really active right now with Colorado Tourism Office. We were invited to a reception on May 11th. They wanted to know for the whole state what's going on in Lyons, our event list. These are things that Brianna Hoyt, as Main Street Manager, and Kim Mitchell take care of for us. Kim is out in Richmond, Virginia right now. It's a paid trip to be as part of the Main Street community to go out and get their annual conference, make sure we're maintaining the program. But she is out there right now. She called me today and said, "Oh, I've got so many." We are going to work with the Colorado Tourism Office on updating all our wayfinding signage in town and helping us to find grants to pay for that. We did want to let you know, we try not to do this, but a grant opportunity came up for providing Lyons residents who don't have garages with bear-proof trash containers. And we usually don't apply for grants without the board telling us they want us to, but this one was time sensitive. The previous board had discussed it. So we went ahead and told Boulder County we're in if you get the grant. So we will be coming out with a program on how to distribute those if this grant's awarded, but there really should be no reason then that anyone in town has the bears getting in their trash. And we'll probably start enforcing that much harder once we provide this to everybody. Ambient string lighting on Main Street between 4th and 5th Avenue, between the street light and the buildings. So the sidewalks will be lit with the ambient light. That grant has been awarded, and we're working with some lighting contractors to try to get the feel that we're looking for there, but there's lots of good things. We have heard from Crown Castle that they are planning to move forward with their 5G cell project, going from Lyons up to Estes Park. And so an application has been submitted, and Aaron had they did get new information. They are planning to put it in front of CDOT facility instead of in front of the building. Okay. So we did start a new website page on ours to give people information and who to contact, since it is not a town project. Per se. Let's see. That's probably enough. That other big news is the bus route is coming back to Lyons. And we did have a naming contest. They decided on the Lyons flyer. That will be the bus route that will be Monday through Friday, twice a day. So replace the Y service we used to have.
When you mean twice, like once there and once back, or twice there and twice back?
It'll be just morning and evening.
Oh, okay.
I think they chose to go with a slightly later bus. There was two about 45 minutes apart in the morning.
Okay.
And let's see. Other than that, the new advertising is out for the artisan market and barbecue and the Wednesday concerts in the park. And also want to just make sure the board is aware that a couple of the staff are spending some time on working with Mrs. Laverne's service. So we hope that's okay with everyone, but this is going to be a large celebration of life, and they have specifically asked to use Laverne Johnson Park. And so that means quite a bit of maneuvering for staff and people who have reservations and things. So I want the board to know that the clerk's office and myself are working with the family to try to have the service that they're looking for.
Needing special funding for it at all?
No.
Cost?
Nope,
Yeah.
I don't think that part of it. We've met today with the family for an hour or so, and they're trying to, we'll know tomorrow the date. But we have some things to work out because they have a strong interest. They want to have a viewing at the elementary school where she square danced for 40 years. And that can't happen in school in session, but then have a celebration of life in the.
Yeah, I would imagine the St. Vrain Valley School District might have something to say about.
Oh, they're involved. No, they're very, very
they're-
supportive.
Okay.
Very
okay.
supportive. They let her dance there for 40 years, so they get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they just really want to use the park, and it's just a lot of logistics that we need to help them figure out. So we are spending some time on that.
Well, and Tanya offered this earlier, but if I can help, let me know, and
You will.
I'm sure.
We will. It's still a lot of coordination at the family level before we get into some of the logistics, but it will not, services will not be this weekend.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any questions for Administrator Simonson?
I have a question, because I still don't understand the referral process. And we have this upcoming CEMEX committee on Wednesday that I have been attending since last August as a request from the previous BOT. So I guess I'm just looking for some direction from this BOT as to how we are to proceed in this referral process with trustees sitting on this committee or attending these meetings.
Well, my opinion, and I expressed this earlier, is that I don't think it's appropriate for a trustee to be sitting on the CMEX committee while we're making a decision of this magnitude. So I still don't understand the purpose of the committee. I mean, I know I was on the board when it was formed, but I don't know what the purpose was, and I don't know how the committee itself serves the town. So my inclination would be to dissolve the committee unless we can show tangibly how it positively affects the town of Lyons. Otherwise, because that's what we're here doing.
Well, I would love to hear some feedback from, or maybe some background from Administrator Simonson as to why that was decided to create that commission.
Well, we can certainly pull up the minutes. It was at the request of Mayor Angelo, and he said this was something we had in place years ago. It was, my recollection was to improve communications and to educate the public. But when we visited there the other day, I heard him say that their new corporate model is to have an education committee in all their communities, that they have a plant. So it was honestly, it was just appointed by the mayor and the board gave a nod.
Okay.
And I don't think he really, we can pull up the minutes and take a look and bring those to you. In regard to the referral, it will come from you as elected officials as a whole. So whatever you decide about your committee, I don't know that it prevents you from sitting at your meeting. I don't know if you're going to be discussing that or not, but you might just want to refrain from comments until you know where the board stands on it to speak as a whole, unless you clearly say, I'm speaking as an individual. But the board is not taking a stance on it, so.
Yeah, it's my understanding from sitting on this committee that this is actually, I think it's the first and maybe the only what's the word, community committee.
Yeah.
Out of all the CEMEX plants in the US. And I definitely understand it to be more of an educational and relationship building partnership with the town of Lyons and CEMEX. So just because I was on this committee from a nonprofit aspect representative, and now as a board of trustee, I'm just wondering, this was a committee that was formed under another BOT. I realized that there are going to be a couple of us on there now. There are a couple of commission members as well. Greg
Yeah,
Lowell,
so I
Jeff
was just,
Christie.
yeah, so Greg Lowell's on it. I was just gonna go to this one meeting.
Mhm.
So but there'll be two of us there. So nobody else, no other board member can go,
Right.
right? So, I don't know. Maya did say that the student advisory committee over this last year, their most consistent project was the CMEX. And I didn't understand the relationship there either with the students and whatnot. And there's a lot I don't understand. Is there a teacher involved in the high school?
No,
in
that,
this?
again, the mayor was the liaison to the student advisory commission, so, and he was the one who formed the committee, so I think he just thought that future generations have an interest in what happens on this site from a sustainability perspective and environmental perspective, but well, I don't think any of it was formalized by the board, like there's no.
No, I don't think it was. And I think, you know, if CMEX wants to have a community committee, you know, then of course, you know, they can, but it's so murky because it was not official, it wasn't created by ordinance or resolution. So, you know, I guess, you know, I
Revisit it. We can bring back the history we can find.
Yeah.
On this too.
I would like to do that.
But in the
I
meantime.
want to make sure I'm not
I mean,
missing
if
anything.
If they do discuss the referral process, I think you either need to be very clear, I'm speaking as an individual, because the board is not taking a stance, and then once you do, that's what you support.
Sounds good.
But the referral process, this is very common for any applications, you know, the county, the state, the locals all do this. When you have an interested party, there's going to be a significant change. Just like planning commission, when we get a development in town, I'll use the hotel as an example, that got sent to everyone who had an interest. So it went to the fire department. What are your concerns about this? And would you support about this? It went to the sheriff. What are your concerns? Is this going to require more resources? It gives just interested parties an opportunity to formally comment. And then on top of that, you hold public hearings, so the public individuals can come in with their comments.
Can we do any of this in an executive session? Is this
Which one?
our discussion about what our referral might be and what might be in our referral?
Brandon?
Would that ever be
So-
appropriate for executive session?
So maybe we could craft it into a form of an executive session, but there are very limited categories, I think, as you know, where we could do the executive sessions, and we would have to fit within the category of instructing negotiators. And so I don't, if there would be a subcommittee of the board we want to be instructing, I don't know. It may be tough to fit it neatly into an executive session. We'd have to think about it.
Okay, I was just wondering if our referral will contain some negotiations.
Oh, probably not. I think they're going to ask more. Well, I don't know. I haven't looked at the 228 pages yet, so I need to get that together by next week. And then last but not least, I do need to make an announcement. We have received a resignation of Director Strong. He will be done at the end of the month, although he's going to work with the new planner for a couple of days in June for me. He has taken a position with a private firm that will, you know, they have a different salary schedule and work remotely. So we are saddened to hear that. He's really doing a good job for us. And the good news is that I do have two other people, and one of them came today, visited from Santa Fe, and is very interested in the job. So I think we will be filling that. There's actually the director and then a planner one that will both vacant. And so I'm thinking about restructuring that to just be two planner twos and try to get two people with experience and can split up this workload a bit. And so need to let you guys know that that will be changing.
In our first Board of Trustees meeting, we had a consent agenda that included a lot of money for the GIS system.
Yes.
And it did say in there that this had been done in the past, it became underutilized, and then we had staff turnover. I was going to pull it from the consent agenda just to suggest our staff is high-tech, our staff is educated, and turnover is really costly. And that was $120,000 for the GIS, right? And so that's what turnover costs us, which is a lot more than a pay raise. So I think this needs to be considered, and now we're going to have 2 planner 2s learning the GIS system.
Well, the good news is they both come pretty well equipped with that
So-
area.
And we can talk about salaries during budget.
No,
Yeah.
we totally understand that. And it's not just the money either. It's the knowledge and the time and the
Yeah,
history.
that can be really, really
And
expensive.
the relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships. So, trust me, it was not an easy decision for him either. And he and his wife have to make the best decisions for them. So it is that. And, but we have been talking at the department head level about how to restructure this because that position has had some turnover. And so we're looking at that internally, but we think this might be a better option and to split up that workload so that they're both doing development review, but then one is purely historic preservation. One of them loves historic preservation, so they're excited to get onto that mission. They both are GIS experienced, and one has some code enforcement background. I think we can split up the workload a little better so that the director doesn't have all that really heavy stuff, and then the planning assistant, we'll be able to split that a little bit. So we haven't tried that way yet, so giving that a shot, but we have to do some internal discussions yet about supervision. But I did want you guys to know he will work just a couple of instances. But he has met with the new guys and they've already planned sometimes to do some transition. A lot happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I know. All right, thank you. Okay, legal update, Attorney Dittman.
So I don't have a big update, but I did want to say during the break, I found my Mastering Mountain Bike Skills book from 2010. I don't know if you can see it or not. Written by Lee McCormick, who designed the bike park, and in that it says that it's the Lyons Bike Park.
It says Lyons Bike Park?
Yeah, right there.
Great. Great.
That is
Excellent.
That's all I have.
Perfect.
You didn't add that to your billable hours though, did you? Okay, summary of action items, please.
All right, here's what I have. Number 1, move forward and work with lead regarding the use of the ground building. Schedule a workshop to cover bonds. Move forward with the RFP for street paving. We need a resolution to rename the Dirt Jump Bike Park to Lyons Bike Park. A request to share the sales tax chart with the community, potentially on the website. Discuss reallocation of parks tax revenue to the capital improvement projects. And then I need to review minutes on the formation of the CMAX committee. Brandon, did I miss anything?
I don't have anything additional.
I just have a couple. The summit housing process and the state preference policy for human services follow-up. The sustainability coordinator volunteer looking into that a little further. Start looking at local designation of our town buildings. And I think that's at the rest of mine internally, some extra referral packets.
I guess
In this session, could you remind us what the next meetings are too? That's always helpful because we have a Lura meeting coming up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
so just
Go
tell
ahead,
when to show up
Brandon.
next.
Something more. Did you have something else, Brenda?
Well, I was gonna just say that I was gonna look at Mayor Pro Tem Farrell's tax reallocation thing if the board wanted me to.
Oh, so for, let's see, we are on June.
So we have a Lura meeting the 19th?
No,
No,
that's
that
moved
was
to
been-
June.
That got canceled. Neither Cassie nor Caitlin. You guys all responded, but Cassie and Caitlin couldn't, so.
Oh, Clerk Vasquez, could I ask you please, when we schedule special meetings like that, once we settle on a time, would you mind sending out a calendar invite? That would be really helpful.
So we have municipal court Thursday morning, if any of you want to come and observe that, because you haven't been able to do that yet. Ecology Board Wednesday night, does that sound right for you? And Board of Adjustments was continued to this Thursday.
Oh, the walking tour of the new trail.
That is Friday from 2 to 4.
Okay, and we meet here.
Be here,
Okay.
because Tracy'd like to do some discussion before we go out in the field. Now, we did hear from Spirit Hounds that that is not a good time for them. But I tried to explain that this was an overall of the project, funding, how it impacts all the businesses, and then if you want to follow up separately. But I don't know if you want to cancel it. I wrote an email today.
Well, are we going to be hearing from like Lonnie?
You might, I don't know, every business is impacted there.
Yeah.
But we've been working on this for years, so we pretty much, you're aware of that, but it sounds like that date doesn't work for Spirit Hounds to be on site. But that's why if you want to not have it this Friday and reschedule it for another Friday, you certainly can. But
Oh, what does the board think? Mayor Pro Tem, do you have an opinion?
Well, I've got family and graduation coming in pretty much the next week, 2 weeks, so I'm not really available. Unless you do something before the 25th. But walking the trail is a great opportunity for us to at least see all of it. Spirit Hounds would not be joining us for all of it anyway. Doing something separate with.
Okay. Yeah,
and I can't make it this Friday. Sorry, I can't make it this Friday either. So I would like to walk the trail at some point. So
you
she
can't.
could do this Friday, not the next year.
Oh, I see. Maybe you guys will catch me.
Trustee Delman?
I cannot make it this Friday either, and I would love to walk it.
Well, we might have to do Tuesday.
Okay.
Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it this Friday, but not the following.
Okay. And Trustee Williams?
I cannot do, I leave for California super early in the morning and I don't come back till the evening.
Okay. Okay, so we may have to do it in 2 groups, but we'll try not to schedule that at 10:15 tonight. So okay.
But we're still on with this Friday at 2. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tracy is planning on that, and then she can certainly do another one. It's fine.
Okay.
Other meetings that you were asking about, right now, the Lura meeting is scheduled for the 23rd at 4 o'clock. Is that what you have?
No.
June 9th, I think. Is what
June 9th.
Oh, June 9th. I'll take that off. I put it
And
in
that
here
was the
so
one
many
you were
times.
curious about.
Yeah. Okay, that's
Okay.
June 9th. At 4 o'clock, and that's here.
June 9th at 4 p.m. Yes.
All right, thank you.
I have like 4 of them on here. Other than that, there's no other significant, there's a Lyons comp plan growth area, but I think that's in.
I think Trustee Edding was just curious about the Lura meeting.
Okay.
Always need to know when do we need to show up next?
Yeah.
We can try to do that more if you want us to. Dolores, your office and I can do what? Let people know right before meetings.
Yep, sure.
Like this week's meetings. I used to always put it at the end of my report. If you want me to go back to that, I'd be happy to. There was upcoming happenings.
Oh,
And I would do both community and town things. You can put on your fridge.
That would be good. That would be terrific. That would be
Would
so
you like that
helpful.
again?
Yeah.
I have
Calendar invites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
calendar invites,
Uh-huh.
even for,
It's hard as we're out.
well, it doesn't matter.
It'll
I
transfer.
actually am out.
Okay.
Yeah, and even for our regular board meetings, you know, for those, just
We
to,
need to just tighten it up. We'll get better.
that
about
would be
But
terrific.
I'm happy to do like what's coming up the next 2 weeks, every 2 weeks.
Perfect.
And then you
Great.
have them for everybody, so you know what's going on.
Great. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, one thing, since we're talking about calendars and you were asking, the comprehensive, the next Clarion Community Comprehensive Plan open house is June 7th. I'll have, there should be some more details coming, but, and something in the paper, I believe. But it's June 7th, Tuesday.
In the evening.
Thank you. In the evening at the library.
I believe so. I don't unfortunately have all the details at the moment, but plan on that.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
My motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
And then a second.
Second and a third, let's vote. Mayor Pro Tem says, are you saying aye?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Stay healthy, Brandon.
Will do.